Good evening. The November 16th Board of Education meeting is now in session. Please rise for the invocation. O God, we pray to administer that which is just in all educational policies, being ever mindful of your guidance, stir us to action with love, wisdom, and understanding. The pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 2.03 is approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Second. All those in favor? The minutes are approved. Item 2.04, establish agenda order. Mr. Gilliland.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to move that we remove item 4.02 from the agenda and have that set for a future board meeting.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, so we will remove item 4.02 and put it on a future agenda. Item 2.05 are recognitions, and we don't have any this evening. Item 2.06, school and community highlights. Mrs. Nally.
I want to share them. First, I really enjoyed the Germantown Italian dinner with Mary Austin and her daughters, and the students did a wonderful job, and it was just a great event. It was just wonderful to see the kids and the parents at Germantown. And I attended the Wellness Council meeting yesterday. Thank you, Jody Reese and Teresa Tudor, and had a wonderful Lucia Martin, who is coordinator of school counseling. It's the Wellness Council it's really interesting, all that is going on in our system in terms of helping students and staff really can help their lifestyle, help in a number of ways. And it was real interesting to see the different folks in the committee, elementary, middle, and high school, what the activities that are going on. And many of them were having yoga sessions at their school, and I thought, gosh, when I was a teacher, I would have loved to have participated. Not now, but I would have loved to at the time. It was wonderful. Thank you. And the impact that the Lucia Martin shared, the impact that the school counselors and the psychologists have on student success, and it's just very impressive, and I thank you. The third thing I did was I attended the Anne Arundel County Retired Teachers luncheon and meeting today. Thank you, Monique, for speaking and really helping talk to the retirees and thank them for all they contribute after they retire and all that they do for our system. And it was, Monique gave some specific examples of people who are working in schools, and it's just, it's wonderful to be a part. I am a retiree, obviously, and it's just wonderful to be a part of folks who work so hard and then have come back to schools to give again and make a difference. The Cat North, we had the meeting at Cat North. Again, my goodness, the Cat North culinary students provided us with a fabulous meal. I bought a cheesecake and brought it back to share with the board, and no calorie cheesecake, I think. Anyway, really, really delicious. The students served us. The pastry was good. I'm telling you, it was just great. It was what a wonderful. And I want to thank the retired school personnel, Tony Angelina, all the people who really contribute and spend so much time volunteering for our school system. And I think that is. Oh, and I attended the Maryland Hall board meeting. I get paid so much for all this. Attended the Maryland Hall board meeting, and it's very exciting. I'm sharing it with what Maryland Hall is, how they've expanded, and their plans for the next few years. And their new courses are out. Go online. There's so many things for children and adults. Our Anne Arundel County Public School students are in Maryland Hall on a daily basis, and we thank the staff and everything that goes on there. So it's it's really a great place. So thank you very much. That's it.
Ms. Hummer?
I've attended a bunch of things, but a couple of highlights. The Family Involvement Conference on November 5th, there were over 200 parents there to be involved. Teresa Tudor and her team just did a fabulous job. It was great. So one of the strengths and one of the best things about our county is the diversity we have in all areas, that from the diversity of our cultures that come out, our rural and urban and suburban mix and everything that comes out. And today I had the opportunity to attend 3 different events today before I came here tonight that really just highlighted all the amazing things that are going on in our county. I went to the International Parent and Community Advisory Committee meeting this morning, and that is a team of dedicated parents from all different cultures who come together to give ideas for how we can further enrich all of our student body with all the insight and things, and bringing in and melding with the different cultures that we have. And then I went from there to Georgetown East to have a Thanksgiving feast with the first grade. There's nothing more fun than having Thanksgiving feast with first graders, especially when these fabulous nanas and mothers and community volunteers made a 9-course meal. I mean, turkey, you name it. Everything was there. I needed a nap afterwards. But it was just wonderful to see the community involvement that was there, and the children, and they're celebrating immigrants coming over to our country, being welcomed by the natives. I mean, it was a fabulous event. And then I went from there way down to the southern part of our county to Shadyside Elementary. And Shadyside, through their EEE Arts and Humanities program, created a unity, I don't know what we call it, a tent or it was amazing. They had poles with all different things about people, and the children and all the staff took yarn and they wrapped around these poles for things that described them. I am a friend, I am a scholar, I am brave. And as each person wrapped around, it was their uniqueness, but then they are all tied together, and it showed how all the unique individuals create one giant creation and one giant thing working together. And it was very neat. And my favorite story was it was 2 little boys, each were going around the pole for I am brave, and one of them said, "You're brave, I'm brave too, we can be brave together." And I was like, how fabulous is that? So I just feel like it's such a privilege to live and work and serve in this county with these wonderful teachers and students and families we have that are all working together to make a greater whole out of all the individuals. So today was just a great day for that.
Ms. Sasso?
During this month, one of the very, very nice things that the school did was Crofton Middle School, which did have the Veterans Day ceremony. They have done it for the last 12 years, and it really was a graceful thank you to our troops and to the people who serve in the military, to basically praise them and recognize them on that day. So that was really, really a great ceremony. The next thing that I attended was the Annapolis Education Committee, which basically they were discussing the fact about the redistricting, if it was going to take place, and where they stand and what they would like. They also spoke about the Monarch School, which is basically the school that is coming in, hopefully, for 2018. I also attended the Tyler Heights PTA meeting because they were speaking about the reconstruction of the school and really what do they want to do, and also the overcrowding. The other committee that I attend was Maryland Hall, since I represent the board as a board member in front of Maryland Hall, because I don't know if you know, but basically the AACPS basically are the owners of that building. And at the same time, our children attend all of the different arts programs over there. And one of the things, and I'm going to ask Dr. Arlotto to basically explain it, but we have a radio program that will be going on, and it's called CRAB. And it just came about because Maryland Hall approved it, and our board, or we have approved it as CPS. So I'm going to have Dr. Arlotto explain what it is and what it entails. Go for it.
Okay. So thank you, Ms. Sessa. We are truly very excited for this opportunity in a partnership with Maryland Hall. So Maryland Hall has gone through the process of the FCC to gain a license. It's a low-level, low-wattage license where we will, our deal with them is that we are going to provide between 15 and 20 hours a week beginning in February of 2017 of programming, and it will be our PVA students as well as getting access to students around as we build this, getting students around the county to participate, but we will do pre-recorded pieces for them. I think the radio lingo is after they're finished, they're in the can. So we've got a number of hours that are already in the can. Is that right, Dr. McMahon? So we are very excited. We'll have our very own Crab radio, and we will be on the air beginning in February 2017. I don't. Do we know the dial number? 1047. FM. It's an FM station. 1047. More to come on that. We just signed the MOU yesterday.
Right. Mr. Gilliland.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to use my time to thank a couple of people, but first Mrs. Nally for the cheesecake back there. That was, I had 2 pieces. It was good. On November 5th, some other organizations that I'm a part of had an outreach, a Title I outreach day at both Park Elementary and Hilltop Elementary, and I just want to extend thanks to Sandy Blundell, the principal at Park Elementary, as well as Louise DeJesu, the principal at Hilltop. This is the second meeting in a row I've thanked Louise DeJesu, so people are going to talk, but I have just got to say that both of the principals, as well as Mr. Mosier here and his team, were very, very helpful for us with the community outreach. We provided services to 75 families at each school, so 150 families that day, and families were provided with food, with clothing, with a number of needs that they had, and a number of other nonprofit groups participated in those the event at both of those schools. And the second thing that I wanted to mention, again, it's a thank you to Shauna Kaufman, the principal at Arnold Elementary, as well as the entire faculty and the student body there. Yesterday, Mrs. Hummer and I had the privilege of being at their Blue Ribbon event, their celebration event, and I thought it was just an exciting day with the mascot from the Terps, the BOE Bay Sox, as well as Arnold Elementary's own. So, just kudos to Arnold, Mrs. Kaufman, and her entire faculty.
I just want to add, I was also at the Veterans Day ceremony with a lot of the other board members. Wonderful ceremony. And on Monday, Dr. Arlotto and I had a chance to see the Not My Child video and panel discussion at Arundel High School. That was my first opportunity to get out there and see it on the opioid epidemic. And I believe they have a couple more dates planned. So if you haven't had a chance, I would highly recommend it. It's very informative and eye-opening. Item 2.07 is the CROSS report.
Good evening, President Korbalak, Dr. Arlotto, and members of the board. My name is Christina Dyson, and I am the second vice president of the Chesapeake Regional Association of Student Councils. CRASC is looking forward to an upcoming event on December 5th. We are partnering with AVID to identify undiscovered student leaders to attend Rookies in the Lead. This is an orientation conference where students in grades 7 through 10 will learn about opportunities and pathways to leadership in our school system and community. We will focus on mapping out goals and learning more about existing leadership structures. Breakout sections will be offered in both Spanish and English. The other item that has occupied us for the past few weeks is the presidential election. This year's election cycle has given us many teachable moments and topics for discussion. This has been a challenge because we represent all students from all backgrounds and all political perspectives. With that in mind, we'd like to take this moment to express compassion, empathy, and tolerance. Across the nation, young people have organized demonstrations as an expression of frustration. For many youth, such as those too young to vote, these walkouts and rallies may be their only platform for political activism. Though other avenues for expression and engagement may exist, not all students experience the same support and encouragement that we do here in our community. When we want to express opposition and exchange ideas with our leaders, CRASC representatives can speak at public hearings, schedule an appointment for discussion, or host a dinner at a waterfront venue. And we are so grateful for the opportunity to represent our community and our generation. We'd like to take a moment to commend those educational institutions that are maintaining an environment for peaceful expressions, embracing the opportunity to support each other, and celebrating civil liberty. We encourage students who feel suppressed or disenfranchised to come to a CRASC meeting. CRASC is an affirmative space where the student voice is honored. We have meetings coming up on November 30th, December 7th, and December 14th, right here at the Carol Parham Building at 6:30 p.m. We'd like to thank AACPS for supporting and encouraging civil engagement and political activism. Thank you for allowing me to represent the students of Anne Arundel County.
Thank you, Christina. I think you might be able to put some things in the can on Crab Radio too.
Definitely.
They might be open to that.
Thank you.
All right, item 2.08 is the PTA report, and we do not have a PTA report this evening, but we do have Alderwoman Finlayson here who would like to give us an update from the City Council before she has to leave for a meeting.
Good evening. But before I do, I have to congratulate, and I didn't catch her name, the second Vice President of CRASC. She's awesome.
Yes, she is.
As I travel around the country, I talk about the fact that we have a student member on our board and an awesome organization that prepares our young people to be leaders. And so tonight, that speech should be televised. If you haven't done it, it should be the first thing that you put on the radio station, because everyone should have an opportunity to hear her. I'm Alderwoman Sheila Finlayson. I represent Ward 4 in the city of Annapolis. Prior educator, 35 years with Anne Arundel County Public Schools, and once a teacher, always a teacher. I'm here this evening, however, to represent the Annapolis City Council and to read to you a resolution that we passed on Monday night. It is Resolution 35-16. The topic is redistricting of Annapolis cluster schools during 2016-2017 for the purpose of providing a statement of full support of redistricting the Annapolis feeder system during the school year. It is introduced and sponsored by Alderwoman Finlayson, Mayor Michael Pantelides, Alderman Joe Budge, Alderman Fred Payon, Alderman Jared Littman, Alderman Kenny Kirby, Alderman Ian Pfeiffer, and Alderman Ross Arnett. And it reads, for the purpose of providing a statement of full support of redistricting the Annapolis feeder system during the 2016-27 school year. Whereas, at its November 7th, 2016 meeting, the Annapolis Education Commission issued a full statement of support of the Anne Arundel County Board of Ed's current plan to study the redistricting of the Annapolis cluster schools. The Annapolis City Council supports a redistricting process that focuses on the existing cluster of schools and their natural boundaries within the city Annapolis cluster. Whereas the City Council understands that these redistricting evolutions are emotionally draining and may cause great consternation and high tensions. And whereas to ensure equitable education for all children in the Annapolis cluster, the Annapolis City Council supports the current redistricting effort in order to better offer necessary relief to the overcrowding within our schools. Be it resolved by the Annapolis City Council, this resolution is a statement of full support of the Annapolis City feeder system and the redistricting in 2016-17. And again, it's signed by all of the members, at least 7 members of the City Council and the mayor. As Mrs. Sasso mentioned, she attended our Education Commission meeting on Monday night. And for any number of years now, we have been lamenting over the overcrowding in the Annapolis schools. The Annapolis feeder system is the most overcrowded feeder in all of Anne Arundel County. It is time. We know that it is difficult, it is painful, it is emotional, it's expensive even, but it is necessary. At some point in the not distant future, but the near future, the Monarch School will come on board. And that will hopefully alleviate some of the overcrowding, but it will not solve the problem. So we all implore you to take this very difficult step for the sake of our children. Every one of the young people in the Annapolis City feeder system deserves this. So I ask you to step up, make the tough decision, and redistrict our schools as soon as you can this year. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to the public comment portion of the meeting. Anyone wishing to speak on an item that is not on today's agenda may offer testimony during this public comment portion of the meeting. Speakers will be allotted 3 minutes each, and the board asks that comments remain civil and appropriate for the various audiences that may be watching or viewing the meeting. Student-specific and personnel matters are confidential and cannot be discussed in this forum. This time is intended for speakers to voice their opinion and not necessarily as a question and answer period. Speakers may pose questions, but answers will be counted toward the 3-minute allotment. For the record, please give your name before speaking, and handouts should be given to the board assistant. I will call up the first group. I think we have about 25 cards. Marilyn Dillard, Deontay Ward, Cavante Coleman, Denchelle Thomas, Odessa Ellis, and Jonathan Hill. And you can speak in whatever order you would like.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. My name is Odessa Ellis. Concerns. Is this loud enough? Okay. Odessa Ellis, Concerned Citizens for Successful Students. I'm speaking on the behalf of the voiceless children in Anne Arundel County Public Schools. The children that are in the news weekly. Not good news, but bad news. And I have copies of the newspaper here of the student that was just at the high school last week, and he's 17 years old, and the 15-year-old are being arrested. This is being done on a regular basis. Just about every week, when I pick up the newspapers, I see somebody that I know at the from Annapolis High School or other schools being arrested. So I'm speaking on behalf of these students, African American males. From our elementary schools to the high schools, many of them are not achieving academic excellence for various reasons. Some reasons are societal, and many just lack opportunity. For example, at Annapolis High School this week and last week, we had IB Assembly, ESOL Assembly, and an Honor Roll Assembly. Though these assemblies are very important and should continue, there are groups of students who do not fall into these categories and do not attend these positive assemblies. What types of motivational programs are we doing regularly to keep these type of kids in school and to increase their interest in education? So tonight I'm speaking in particular about this one group, African American males. They are being suspended at an alarming rate, and test scores show them performing low in academics. They are very, very needy. Their challenges are great, and in many instances, teachers are overwhelmed daily with their struggles of lack of motivation, behavior, and underachievement. I am sure that our girls may be having these struggles too, but tonight I'm just speaking about the African American males and their needs. I have some suggestions. Implement countywide mentoring programs by maybe community organizations such as fraternities, sororities, etc. I think that we need to have periodic assemblies also for them. and provide other support tools like intramural sports that can reduce the high suspension, low academic performance, and dropout or expulsion rate among African American males. Also, it's my understanding that the mentor program, Panther Promise Middle College, is being discontinued, and this is the last year at Annapolis High School. Panther Promise is a highly successful program that helps males with their academics and motivates them to achieve higher goals. It started out at Sojourner Douglas and was continued at Annapolis High, but because of funding, it will not be continued next year. So I'm asking the board to provide the funds to reinstate Panther Promise because it has proven to be successful. This is my last little paragraph. Finally, we have an excellent staff and teachers at Annapolis High and throughout the county. In spite of the challenges, they stay there at the school because they care about our children. They have established and built rich relationships over time with them. But they too need help. They work hard and face daily the challenges that impede student successes. They give support emotionally, academically, and financially. When the board addresses the needs of these low achievers, you are also addressing help and support for our teachers. So let's think about a countywide initiative addressing the needs of African American males and others who are falling through the cracks. Thank you. And Cavante would like to say something because he's part of the program Panther Promise Miller College. Mm-hmm.
My name is Cavante Coleman, and I'm a part of the Panther Promise program. The Panther Promise program is something for the blacks and the Latinos that's in our school. It's not like a really big group, but it's a small group. And it started off about going to college, but then after the years went on, it's more about blacks and Latinos succeeding in society today because our group is being perceived as this and that. We basically just want to change that by going to college and being successful. And
that's it.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Don Shell.
Hi, my name is Don Shell Thomas, and I am a student ambassador in the Panther Cafe Club we have after school. And every day every Tuesday we have the Panther Cafe Club. There are students who come there from help day with the teachers. And even though I'm like in the back like helping with the food and concessions, there's been a guy named Mr. Anderson who came to our school out of volunteer work to interact with the children and want to make friendships with them and help them understand that, you know, we can have fun, we can do things together, and we can make a great success. And I feel that in today's society, in Annapolis society, that we can implement more programs as mentoring programs. Because as I see it, that if we implement programs of mentoring to our students at Annapolis High School, at our students at our South River High School, middle school, elementary school, it's been proven to work. Because in middle schools, there's a thing called backpack buddies. There are mentor programs. And the thing with in elementary schools, they have mentoring programs. We all talked about it earlier about saying you all visited elementary schools and saw great success. So I feel that we should implement the success of into our high schools and implement the programs of like supporting them with mentoring programs, having adults come in and talk with the students to achieve better success. Because mentors are the people in the tool that let a student know that you have a talent, and I see this talent and I can achieve the success of this talent. The teachers are doing a great job at it, but if you think about it, there's like a 30 to 1 ratio for a teacher, and they can't interact with all the students and be like, I'm going to help you with every single thing. Because you know what? One teacher to 30 students, by like 6 classes, that's a lot of students to have. That's a lot of pressure, a lot of stuff you have to do with grades and essays and exams, and just talking one-on-one is hard to get. And after school, only like one day with provided buses from the county. So I believe that if we implement the success of having a mentoring program in our high schools, in our communities, that it can achieve a greater success. It can help our students understand that we care about them, that we want to support them in every single way possible. And that including in our high schools, and in our elementary schools, and our middle schools. Which is why, like as Cavante said, in the program he's in, it helps them. It helps them achieve greater success. I'm in the student ambassador for my Panther Cafe Club, and also I'm an AVID too, with a lovely teacher who wants me to achieve the greatest success possible. There's a bunch of teachers at our school who love us, who care so much about they risk everything for us. They go the extra mile, they go all the way. and they don't want to ever see a kid turn down or see a kid fail because of that success and that reason. So as I say again, I really think we can implement this because as John F. Kennedy once said before, if not us, who? If not now, when? And that's why I think we should do that. Thank you, guys.
My name's Marilyn Dillard, and I have issues or I have questions, basically. Unfortunately, I have 3 grandsons that I'm raising, okay, and they've had issues since elementary. They went to elementary school, and then they go into middle school, and I don't think that they were ready for it. It's like they've never gotten in any trouble in elementary, but once they transition to the middle school, that's where it all began. And so 2 of them ended up in the alternative school, which is a disaster, I hate to say. And then now one of them has left the alternative school and having a really hard time transitioning here because the alternative school teaches very differently than your regular public school. So he's like doing nothing. And the teachers that he have really been trying to help him, encourage him. And so, you know, he needs a mentor. He needs something that can push him into the right direction before he's in the newspaper. So, you know, our programs where we live have ended. The Boys and Girls Club no longer helps them in my community, maybe at the big one, you know, but when you have 3 kids and it's $20 a piece, it gets kind of steep. So, I mean, I would just like to see some kind of mentorship, and they're all saying the same thing with the high school, and tell me what I can do to help my grandson. I guess I have to visit Annapolis to see what you all have, what they have to offer, because they all are in alternative schools, except my one, and I'm working on him too, so that's all I'm saying, something that can help our youth, and especially the males.
Good evening. My name is Jonathan Hill. I'm a mentor, community activist, and author. I was at Annapolis High School as a mentor. I was a volunteer mentor, and the program that I was in, it got shut down. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure how. But what I'm here to say is that when I was in this program, I talked to quite a few young men, and this was in the 2012 and 13 year, and I still am in contact with some of those guys. I've seen them go down southern United States, come back up, and I've seen them have all kinds of issues once the program stopped. I was able to talk to young individuals. I was given an hour every time I came to the school. These young individuals were, you know, in trouble and things of that sort, until, you know, I started coming to the schools and started spending an hour with them just on one day a week. And I was able to talk to one individual about you know, his drug use, and he was only in like the 9th and 10th grade. But after one day, I talked to him for about an hour to explain to him and to get him to understand more about what drug use is, what it does to the body, what it does to the mind, and things of that sort. And right there in the middle of the whole classroom, he stood up and said, "I'm never doing drugs again." And I was only given an hour once a week with these young guys. And as I can see, with the whole meeting from start to beginning, I had their attention. And it's not like they don't want to pay attention. It's not like they can't pay attention, but they also need somebody that can relate to them, relate to the things that's going on in their home. It's kind of hard for them to, you know, it's kind of hard to implement policy and implement other things to some individuals that you really can't relate to because you don't have a relationship with. So I'm just saying, as a mentor, you know, as a father, I'm a father of 8. And like I said, I'm a community activist, and I have my children, their friends, they come over to me and, you know, talk to me about things that they can't talk to their parents about, their grandparents, or even their other best friends. And we're able to have dialogue on a level that they understand, and I understand them. I've been through similar issues that they've been through, and we're able to come to an agreement or come to an understanding that, you know, we understand each other, I understand you, and it's not all about what you're going through. It's about what you're setting your mind to go through in the future. And without that mentorship, without that that help, the extra help when they come to school. It's like they said, the teachers can't do it all. You need somebody who can understand and relate in it. And when you don't have anyone to understand or relate, then there's no relationship with anything, with anyone. The number one thing that I was teaching them to understand is having the relationship with themselves before anyone else, before, I'm sorry, I'm not sorry to say, but, before your parents. You have to understand you. You have to understand what they're trying to do and the good that they're trying to do. And I know, tell a lot of them young guys, I know it's hard to be able to listen to everything that they say do, but most of the things are for your good. And just to say one last thing, to give an example, what I told them was, as far as with their parents, they say, we really don't understand our parents. And one of the things that I told them was, you have to realize that your parents had a life before you. And, maybe they weren't able to go through and sift through all the issues before you came along. And a lot of those young guys, the parents were, they were a product of their parents trying to find maybe love in some certain situations, only to have a child and realize that they hadn't finished with the issues that they had in the first place, and it became even worse with a child. So I'm just saying that, mentors do a lot. It's not just sitting and talking. It's understanding their relationships and getting them to learn how to be themselves, even in the presence of adversity and fear pressure. So, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, we're ready.
I'm sorry. How's everybody? Thanks for the opportunity. My name is Deontay Ward, and I'm the CEO of Black Wall Street of Annapolis. And this program is aimed to educate young entrepreneurs on how to become financial literate, professionalism, and some characteristics of leadership. I'm also the founder of Connected Kids, which is a program to empower the elementary school children to chase their dreams and to keep fighting for success. And I'm the director of a program called SKIO, which is to enlighten troubled teenagers and to keep them on course and being positive. I'm also the father of Lola Mae, which is the granddaughter of Miss Sheila Hill. So she's been talking, or we've been talking back and forth, and she's been telling me about like some of the programs that y'all are trying to put into the school. The early literacy for elementary school. She's talked to me about the math programs that you are trying to put into the middle schools. And she's also talked to me about the 9th grade success program that you're trying to put into the schools. And all three of these actually fall into the program that I want to bring into each level of schooling. I'm 27 years old, and some of the programs that I was involved in that are not offered in the school are called Gear Up, which was the early awareness program for college. And I actually went to trade school because of this program. I graduated in the top of my class. I'm a couple months away from opening my 3rd company. So that was definitely a big success. I was also a part of a program which was called Vision Workshop, which is offered at Merlin Hall. And this program was a program that we took pictures, and then we wrote about these pictures. And at this time frame, I believe I was in 8th grade going into high school, and it was a big incident in my community, so I had the opportunity to capture it, and I wrote about it, and it touched a lot of people. And it was vice versa, because some people was in communities better than mine. They got to share their story, and I think that was very helpful for me to like open my eyes to not just my community, but the communities around me. And another program that I was a part of was called Torch Club, which is offered in middle school. And in this program is actually where I learned my skills to write poetry. So it was very helpful. And in my community, they had a program which was called Gentlemen's Club. And it was for young adults, which I was a part of. And it was a very successful program because it taught me the qualities of a black man. And what it did for me was it actually put me on the right path to want to be better than a lot of my friends. And I wasn't speaking down on them, but I was just being open to a different perspective of life. And so I think with the opportunities that I've like encountered in my life and trying to put these into a program, I think I could be very beneficial in helping a lot of the troubled people or troubled children in the school systems. I'm already doing these programs in my community, but I think if I had the chance to get into the schools, I could actually touch some of the people that's not in part of my community. If I could get just a few more seconds. I think one of the biggest outcomes of like me being able to put this program into the school is less violence, more success in my community and a high education rate or a high success rate for a lot of the kids that's coming out of high school transitioning to manhood. I'll leave it at that, and I'll come to the next meeting and keep talking if I have to.
There you go. Thank you all for coming out tonight, but especially Denshell and Cavante for advocating for yourselves and your classmates. That's very special. Mr. Grannon.
Still learning. Is there any kind of official policy in place for how members of the community can suggest the creation of mentor programs at specific schools or in specific areas?
Well, no, we don't have there's no board policy on mentoring, no. We have processes and procedures that we follow when we are bringing folks into the buildings in terms of if they're going to be working with our students. We have background safety checks, background checks, fingerprinting if we're going to be bringing folks that are not part of our immediate community into part of AACPS to work with our students. Those are some of the processes and procedures, but we've got a number of mentoring programs that are going on, and there's always a greater need. There's a greater need at the elementary schools, there's a greater need at the middle schools, and there's absolutely a greater need at the high school. So it's something that we need the community to come in, folks that want to come in and volunteer their time and work with our students, because as you heard from these young folks, the teachers are doing a phenomenal job of working with their children. And then it takes yet another step, right? Because there's the end of the school day, there's the end of football practice, there's the end of play practice, and then the students still need somebody they need to talk with and meet with and that can speak at their level and sort of understand who they are, sort of what you're referring to. So there is no policy that directs it. We have processes and procedures to bring people in, to make sure that our students are safe and our communities are safe as we're bringing people in. But then we're trying to do much more outreach. Much of what Mr. Alston and his office are doing is outreach to bring folks in and work with our students. So again, there is a never-ending need, and it continues to grow for us in students that need adults to talk to, more adults in their lives.
Follow-up question. Thank you for that. I understand the protocols about safety. Obviously, that all makes sense. But is there one specific step that you could recommend, for example, to this gentleman who's taking the time to come here and talk about these issues, and he says he wants to do more? What would be the first concrete thing that he should do if he actually wants to put in place a mentorship program at a specific school?
Well, it begins with a conversation with the principal at the school, and then he can also work with Mr. Alston, and we can make some of those connections, right? So we want to be able to, when people are ready to volunteer, I'm ready to spread them across 127 schools, right? That can't happen, right? So we have to find out what their ability is, how many folks they think they can reach. Do they have others that will follow them from their community? It could be their church. It could be a community group that wants to come in and volunteer, so they sit down with us. I met with a gentleman just this past week who came in and introduced himself to me, who I've known in the community, and part of his ministry is he wants to get more into the schools and do volunteer works and have more adult males in schools to work with and do some mentoring. So he made an appointment to see me, and we sat down and talked. But it's part of what a number of our offices do, but in particular, Mr. Alston's office. But it starts with going to the school and saying, I've got this idea about mentoring, and this is what I can bring to the table.
Could Mr. Alston just raise his hand so everybody up here knows who he is, so you can connect with that gentleman right there after this meeting? Okay, thank you very much.
Mrs. Nally.
I've been hearing about the Panther Cafe forever and a day. Did I understand her to say that it's going away next year? Oh, Panther Promise. But the Panther Cafe is up and running and going to, because that has been a very positive. Okay, thanks.
And also, through the past recent years of the Panther Cafe being a thing, it has been shortened by different times, because it was 3 days to 2 days to 1 day. So it has been shortened, but I don't think it's going away. But I also want to say one more thing, if you guys don't mind. I'm sorry if it cut into time. But with the Panther Cafe, okay, with the Panther Cafe club that we have there, the kids come in there, and then you can see them, and we serve them with like like snacks and stuff like that, and they can come in there and express themselves. There's a thing with the teacher named Miss Jackson. She comes in with the students and she talks with them, and they like have these games going. Like they can play like Kahoot. It's like Kahoot, like an electronic phone game you play, or like you listen to music and you dance to the music, or sing along, or even just sitting there reading a book, or just talking and rapping and beatboxing with each other, and just having the game going on. And then I would like wanted to also add to it too that before I came here to speak, I had a little like thing. I took a census for a while now. I've been wanting to start a club for a very long time, and I took a census that there are a number of churches and communities that are willing at a call to come and help out and mentor. They just need a whereabout and when. There's a more demand for them coming after school than there is demand coming during school, like a lunch, for example. And I have reached out to so many of them. There's like Annapolis EP, there's Broadneck EP, and then there's Bay Ridge EP, and then there's another one. And then there's also my mentoring that I have of mine, because you don't, when I grew up in the neighborhood I grew up in, there's no structure to it. There's no people there. But people ask me, how am I like in that neighborhood? And I say, because I define myself as this. I can be in the world, but not of the world. So I can be in it and be a helpful light, but I don't have to be in the ways of it. And that's why I am who I am today. And that's why I define it, that there are people who are at the call, who are at the response. They're just waiting. And I feel like that with the help of talking to you guys, that we can implement that and we can make it happen. Because you know what? When it comes to education, it's not about filling up a pail, but it's about starting a fire. And we can do that with our children. We can do that in our community. We can do that in our school. Because there are people who are at the call, who are at the response, just waiting for a key to open the door and say, let's do this.
Ms. Williams.
Excuse me if I get emotional, but I just want to commend you all for coming out here and speaking on this issue, because it's such a huge issue in the community, and we cannot expect to push past this if no one addresses it. So don't stop. I just want to let you know that I appreciate the fact that you come up here and that you're letting us know, and I apologize again if I start crying, but this is so important. So if there's any other resources, continue to look, work with the different offices, continue to push this through, because it needs to be addressed. So thank you.
No, I just want to say the program Panther Pride needs funding, and I don't know how much funding it needs, but like Cavante said, it's been so helpful. So can we look into that?
Are you speaking about the Sojourner Douglas program?
Right, yeah.
I think that was an accreditation issue. Is that correct? That's the reason it closed down.
No, I mean, but the program now is at the high school. It's called Panther Pride. Middle college, I think it is, or something like that. Okay. All right. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Sasso.
To all of you, I spoke this week, and I had a meeting with a gentleman called Darren Ford, who has an organization called Men of Courage, and he's based right here in Annapolis. So before you leave, if I can get a number, because it's really an outstanding program. And as far as he's concerned, our children are not color-coded. We are all human race. So I just sort of thought he was really, really outstanding. And he is an African-American person, but I mean, he speaks fluently. I mean, he really is somebody that would be great for this organization and what you're trying to do.
Okay.
And I will help you with it. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
I'll call the next 6 up. We have Robert Silkworth, Brendan Maltese, Sebastian Serrano, Robin Beers, Sharon Mazzell, and Amanda Fiedler. All right, Bob, you're on.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, President Korbelak, Vice President Hummer, other distinguished board members, Dr. Alada, and friends. My name is Robert Silkworth, and I am the chairperson of the High School Concerns Committee from TAC, and I'm here to give you an update on our recent meeting. During the meeting, which took place on November 9th, 2016, there were some concerns raised about the new grading regulations and how they're being interpreted by some individual schools in a manner that we believe is not really consistent with the intent of the grading regulations. There are some concerns also about the schedule used for the benchmark exams, which we recently had. Of course, we will bring this to the attention of Dr. McMahon at our next ASI TAC meeting, and this is always a great forum for collaboration. The main focus of the meeting, however, was about safe and orderly schools. And I'm going to try to do this in a positive way. It's been reported to us that there are some secondary schools where some staff members, including secretaries, advocates, teachers, and others, are expressing concerns about safety. One of the first things that we always say is that in the building you have a faculty council, which should be used in order to help have some discussions about these fears and in order to make recommendations to the principal. What we do know is that 99.9% of our students do on a daily basis exactly what we want them to do. They come to school with a positive attitude, and they do achieve. The small number who do not, unfortunately, can upset the apple cart, and this is evidently happening in some schools. No one is pointing any fingers. That's not a blame game. Rather, it's an attempt to guarantee that everyone works and learns and teaches in a safe environment. Those students who are not meeting our expectations have the same dreams and aspirations of all of our students. They just have some baggage which is getting in the way of their success, and it is also having a negative impact on the other 99%. The issue of restorative practices was discussed. There are some who have been trained in the use of restorative practices, some who know a great deal about them. I have had some very open and frank conversations with some administrators about the potential effectiveness of the strategies, and I have been somewhat convinced about the great potential. I actually personally recently had some experience with the use of the restorative practice model, and although it did work, there clearly were some kinks in the strategy that needed to be worked out. But when they were worked out, the strategy proved to be useful, beneficial, and successful. Ladies and gentlemen, there are some administrative staff in some of our schools, secondary schools, who are frustrated. They know, or they really don't seem to know what else to do because they feel like they've exhausted all of their strategies that they might have in their bag, including the restorative practices. I believe that we really need to provide some additional resources for them, some help and hope, and including the issue of mentors, which was recently discussed, so that they can provide services as needed to the students that are in crisis so that all of our schools can be safe. Anything that you can do, any resources will be greatly appreciated, ladies and gentlemen. Our next meeting will be held on December the 14th at the TAC office at 3:40, and everyone is invited and welcome. And I always try to end with the kudos. And I'd like to send out a shout again this evening to Katrina Griffin, who is on her way, I believe, to the National Conference for ACFL, if I'm not mistaken, for a potential national award. She's going to represent us well. Good job, Katrina. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening, Dr. Arlotto and members of the board. My name is Brendan Maltese. Anne Arundel County became my home when my family moved here in 7th grade. After college, I spent 2 years teaching at a private school in Baltimore, but I made the decision to come back home, and this is my 4th year back. I married my wife 2 summers ago and convinced her to move from her home in Calvert County up to here, where she now also teaches. We're currently in the process of buying a home, so we've chosen to be here to stay, both as Anne Arundel County residents and AACPS employees. Looking at our projected monthly payment, we know we're going to be living on a tight budget in our new home, but if our paychecks stick to the published schedule and we receive reasonable cost of living adjustments, we're going to be just fine in a couple years. I'm hesitant about this, though, because I know many of my colleagues made similar assessments of their financials back in 2008, and that temporarily tight budget has overstayed its welcome. I hope this board will continue to advocate for our salaries to be funded and our healthcare crisis to be solved without an increase in cost on our end. I watch most of your meetings very closely, and I know that you agree with increasing our compensation package. I hope Dr. Arlotto's budget request will not only include the contractually required step increase, but also work to chip away at the 5 steps that haven't been funded, as well as provide a cost of living adjustment so these steps actually feel like a raise to reward experience instead of just helping to tread water for another year. I understand the budget process, and I know that you can't do any of this if our county government doesn't fund it. I've done my share of contacting the county executive and councilmen, Unfortunately, no matter how we present our case, we get labeled as greedy union thugs asking for more money every year. We need your voices to stick up for us because we've been under attack. For example, the governor's office blamed the reduction of next year's spring break on a dozen union service days, even though he's referring to county-run PD sessions that don't affect the day count. While I think the school calendar is fine, I guess given the circumstances, it's troubling that teachers end up taking blame, even though all of the opportunities for us to publicly voice input in this room were during school hours, and TAC isn't even allowed to negotiate the calendar. We don't deserve that blame. However, we're the ones who take it, and I saw no effort by the school system to come to our defense and correct that record. Look, I'm not here to get rich. I just want to have some assurance that I'll be able to live comfortably. I want to be able to spend my free time with family and friends instead of writing and delivering testimony or boring my wife to death by watching government proceedings on TV. Being involved in this process isn't a hobby that I particularly want to have, but I do it for the future of my family and my students. So will you be bold and fight for us? My college degree is in music education, not political science, economics, or law. Please help me stay focused on teaching music and worrying less about being able to afford my future. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sebastian Serrano, and my job is to teach AP Physics and ESOL Matter and Energy at Annapolis High School. When I come here, I'm cognizant of whom I represent, my students. However, I'm a 25-year-old third-year teacher trying to make things work in Annapolis. I've continued developing as a teacher. I've pursued more scientific knowledge, and I've established a lifestyle within a dynamic and tightening budget as best I can. But this isn't about just me. If it were, I'd send you an email and stay home tonight. This week, I've introduced students to Maxwell's equations, conservation of energy, and pH testing while checking in with 3 different scientific research and development projects on my own time during planning periods, so I admit it's quite a process and I'm a little tired. I'm here because there's an elephant in the room. I've talked to you, union leadership, co-workers about it. We all know it exists, and we know it isn't sustainable. When a school has about 150 teachers and approximately 1/3 of them, 50 teachers, have less than 3 years full experience, even if I go with the number our county government computed of 15 to 1 student to faculty ratio, that means that at any one time, there can be 750 students sitting in a classroom with an untenured teacher. This says nothing against the teachers or the students. People keep trying to square the circle. 750 students in a classroom without a tenured teacher have nothing to do with those teachers nor those students' abilities. It speaks volumes about the county's lack of stability. Part of the problem is that the numbers don't appear consistent. Expenditures on teacher salaries in Anne Arundel County range from $243 million to $496 million, depending on where you look. I'm sure officials here tonight will announce different numbers, further proving the point. So which one is it? And I have a graph here that I can give you later to represent that. Within that gap is far more than the $20 million health care shortfall that was reported by the Capitol in April that people cannot agree on. Whether the numbers are this far off, then it's no wonder that the public is split on education spending. It's no wonder that there are fellow teachers that can misunderstand that there are former challenged school teachers requesting to negotiate our $5,000 back, the money that we lost. We made less money in 2015 and 16 than in the previous year. This simple truth has confused people for some reason. There's a myth out there among people that if my coworkers and I get the money that we lost back, then nobody will ever get a raise again or others will somehow lose money, when this is not an attack. I expect better than binary thinking on all sides of this issue. If we want to convince our kids that education is the way to a better future, that the American dream is a real thing, and that successful and hard work is noticed, then we better start following through on our end. Our founders established American public schools. Let's maintain and foster their success, because watching 10 and 11-year veteran teachers leave last year in unison was a tough sight to witness. We must maintain our experience and grow our successes.
Is it me? Oh, okay, thanks. Good evening, Dr. Arlato, President Corbelak, members of the board. I'm going to start by telling a hopefully kind of short story about the beginning of my year so far. Everybody came back to school with a lot of excitement. There's that trepidation about starting a new year. and you kind of get into the groove. And for the second year in a row, almost to the day, on the same day in the end of September, I came down with a terrible respiratory infection. Last year it was pneumonia. Both 2 years in a row, I missed 2 full weeks of school, which is like 2 months in teacher time. And this year it took me 7 weeks to get my voice totally back. It was awful. I think at that point in the year, the initial excitement wears off and you start to kind of fall apart. This leads me to, I recovered from that, had another couple good weeks at school, got my kids back in the groove. And last week was really hard, I think, on everyone. I think it was hard on students and grown-ups alike. And Friday morning, I got myself ready. I made sure I had my lunch, my purse, all my stuff. And I got my house keys and I stepped out of my house and I felt cold ground on my foot because I hadn't put my shoes on, which at first made me chuckle and then really alarmed me that I'm functioning at such a high level of stress that I left the house without shoes on. I'm 35. I've been doing this a while. I take good care of myself. So that it was funny, but it alarmed me. And then just this past week at school, I got this note from some students. I'm an elementary teacher yesterday that they say, "Dear Miss Beers, it's only Tuesday and you're already tired. At the beginning of the year, it was much nicer. I would like it if on Thursday we could pretend that it was the beginning of the year." And it made me really sad and it made me feel really bad as a teacher. And then I came in this morning and from the same 2 students, there were treats for me on my desk, a stuffed animal and Hershey Kisses and a note that said, "Let's make today the best day ever." So my point is, elementary teachers, at least all the ones that I know, are drowning. We are drowning. And it trickles down through us despite our best intentions to shield our students. It gets to them. And my 3rd graders, they see it, they feel it. I'm in my 9th year. It should be feeling easier by now, and it's not. So I'm going to skip a lot of what else I had to say. I know very talented teachers that are starting to look for different positions, some in secondary, some outside of education. We've got a real crisis in elementary between new mandates, programs, F&P, SLO, E-Gate, all the acronyms that you know. We can't do it all. And right now, none of us feel like we're doing any of it particularly well. And that's not the kind of teacher I want to be. So that's very challenging to go to school every day and feel like I'm not doing the job that I know I could be doing. So I would just ask that we need to redirect the focus to people and not the programs, or we won't have any people left to do the programs. So thank you for your time.
Good evening. My name is Sharon Moselle. I'm a South County resident, a Deal Elementary parent, and an Annapolis High School teacher. This is my 10th year at a challenge school, my 6th year at Annapolis. For the record, while I'm a member of the Teachers Association, I do not presume to speak on behalf of any teacher other than myself. I want to talk about the connection between teacher retention and student achievement. We're all familiar with the Equality versus Equity cartoon that shows 3 children trying to look over a fence to watch a baseball game. Each child is a different height. The first picture shows all 3 children standing on the same size box. That works for 2 of the children. The third and smallest child cannot see over the fence until he is given another box to stand on. The students in our most challenged schools are that third child. They need additional support to get to the same place, to have the same opportunities to enjoy the game. We recognize the value of measures such as differentiated instruction, special education modifications, and EL accommodations. These supports are necessary to elevate all of our students. Less discussed is the undeniable fact that a stable and experienced teaching staff is an essential support. According to a recent study by the Learning Policy Institute, this large study, the turnover rate in Title I schools is nearly 50% higher than that in non-Title I schools. As the authors put it, when there are not enough teachers to go around, the schools with the fewest resources and least desirable working conditions are the ones left with the vacancies. And studies show that high teacher turnover rates have been found to negatively affect the achievement of all students in a school. The Teacher Induction, Retention, and Advancement Act of 2016, signed into law by Governor Hogan, was a direct result of last year's community effort to bring attention to the issue of teachers leaving schools such as Annapolis High School. The preamble of the act says a large amount of teacher turnover contributes to both school instability and student instability, particularly in communities that are highly impacted by instances of instability. The Act includes a subsection whereby funds are to be included in the state operating budget to provide stipends to secondary teachers in economically disadvantaged schools by matching funds from a county grant. With this act, the state of Maryland has finally recognized that certain schools and the teachers in those schools require additional support if their students are to be successful. I'm here tonight to ask you, Dr. Arlotto, to include in your budget funding to provide a stipend to teachers meeting the parameters set forth in the Teacher Retention Act. A stipend may not be the best measure to address teacher retention. It is certainly not the only measure. But funding these stipends would begin to address the exodus of teachers from our most challenged schools. I am well aware of the contentious nature of so-called challenge stipends, and history suggests a stipend of this nature may not survive contract negotiations, but it would be a waste to leave money on the state table for lack of asking. This would do a great disservice to our most vulnerable students. AECPLS has been a leader in providing for these students with our challenge school stipends and the Annapolis High School MOU. Let's not concede that leadership role now that others have finally realized what we have always known, that supporting equity ensures success for all. Thank you, and go Panthers.
Hi. Good evening, Dr. Arlotto, President Korbelak, members of the board. My name is Amanda Fiedler, and I'm a parent in the Broadneck cluster. As you may know, I started the group Profits last year when it became apparent that the teachers in this county needed support from the parents in the community. I would like to ask right now anyone who is in this room that supports the fair compensation for our teachers to please stand in support. This time last year, this room was overflowing into the hallway with teachers who testified until well after midnight. Parents fought alongside teachers for months. As you can see, the audience tonight is a little different. But please don't mistake this for complacency. The efforts it took last year left our teachers emotionally and physically drained. Faced with another year of advocating or focusing their energy in their classrooms, many have chosen the latter. As a parent, that makes me really proud that our teachers put their students first, but as a human, it concerns me. Teachers have described their advocacy work as exhausting, disheartening, discouraging, and humiliating. Last year, one of the most powerful 3 minutes of testimony came from a teacher in a challenge school who's been teaching for 15 years. She's now looking for another career. Is this the future we want for our schools or our children? Do we want teacher morale to be so low in our classrooms? I don't know any other career that requires a level of continued education that our teachers are required to have, who then have to advocate to be properly paid. Our teachers are still being actively recruited by surrounding counties. It also seems counterproductive to me that a teacher who's behind in steps can leave for another county for a few years, come back, and be on the proper salary step. What a waste of invested dollars in that teacher to have them potentially leave for good. What a waste of valuable relationships that teacher has built with their students. There's a problem with the scenario being an option, but it's a scenario a lot of teachers are considering. A few months ago, our teachers were given a ray of hope through the work that elected officials, you as the board, and TAC. One step was given to all eligible employees. This is just the beginning. You are the first and last step in compensating our teachers. If you do not make teacher compensation a priority in the budget, then who else will? We have an amazing and wonderful opportunity for our kids with the programs that we offer them, but we can't offer those programs if we don't have the teachers to teach them. We can't go back and fix things in the past, but we also cannot afford to move forward in the right direction. Please make the funding of our educators a priority in the FY18 budget. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll call the next six. We have Erin Lorenz, Victoria Katona, Kristen Lukatic, Lisa Pline, Lisa Rodvian, and Teresa Sutherland.
I lost musical chairs game.
Good evening. My name is Erin Lorenz, and I teach English and theater and co-direct the drama company at Annapolis High School. I have the pleasure of knowing several of you personally, and I know that the teachers of this county have your support, and I know that there are many moving pieces that make the effort to have us paid as we deserve very difficult. I know you are fighting resistance from some members of the county council and from some sectors of the general public. And at this moment, I would like to thank Profits for their tireless efforts on both of these fronts. Their support has been invaluable and a great relief for us teachers. In discussions with my colleagues, I have been asked directly of my assessment of this board's support. I have assured them more than once that you are on our side. However, it is becoming a difficult argument for my colleagues to take seriously. Teachers in other counties in this state can take their step increases for granted. When this is consistently not the case here, it does not look like support. We need your advocacy. We need you to stand up to the council and say that our salaries are not negotiable and we have to pay our teachers as we deserve and as they were promised when they were hired. We know that in education, a child cannot learn until his or her basic needs are met. And this is from Maslow's hierarchy, which every single teacher in this room, I'm sure, heard about multiple times. But this hierarchy applies to all humans. To produce their best work, people must be certain that their basic needs are met. And too many of our teachers do not have this security. And you're not getting the best of us. You're getting the versions of us working multiple jobs or postponing our own goals of purchasing a house or starting a family. And this is just draining. And I know your job is difficult. Tens of thousands of students depend on your good judgment. Those same students depend on having adults in their lives who can fully invest in them. And it is impossible for us to do this until you have fully invested in us. Thank you.
Good evening, Victoria Katona, Chesapeake High School. As teachers, we have the unique position where we bargain with someone that has no money of their own. We are not able to bargain with our funding source, so we must rely on you to bargain, to fight on our behalf to get funding from those that control the purse strings. When we look at all of the publicly funded bargaining units, fire, police, AFSCME, correctional employees, Anne Arundel Community College, and teachers, this is what you see. Every unit has shown increase in pay greater than Unit 1 teachers in Anne Arundel County Public Schools. In fact, we are at the bottom of all units with a difference of more than 15% between the top unit, the police sergeants, seeing an increase of 28.69% since 2010, and Unit 1 employees up only 10.97% since 2010. Of those units, teachers are the only ones not able to bargain on our own behalf, and we are the ones getting shortchanged on a regular basis. Yes, we get the majority chunk of the county budget, but you're also talking about more than 6,000 employees that are responsible for educating more than 80,000 county students and future residents. Dr. Arlotto, you have said that our people are the champions for the children with whom they interact every day. In turn, we must continue to champion their cause. We owe that to them. We owe that to them because every day they are preparing children not just for success in academics, but for success in life. Well, now it's time for you to be that champion. We need you to help us fight for what you say we deserve. Prove to us that you mean those words, especially considering that in recent past years, you have attempted on more than one occasion to remove the language requiring you to ask for that funding every year. It's time for you to help us fight for restoration of lost steps. We need you to ask the county to not only fund our step increase, but at a bare minimum to also fund another mid-year step toward restoring those steps lost. This isn't only our present, this is also our future. It affects our pensions. We're asking you to fight with us and for us again and include not only a step in your fiscal year 18 budget, but also another step mid-year. We are sitting here asking you to please be our champions. Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Arlotto, President Korbelak, and members of the board. My name is Lisa Rodvian, and I'm a middle school teacher, music at Arundel Middle School. Since I have testified here on many occasions, I decided to let my testimony tonight be a voice for many other AACPS teachers that could not be here tonight. I started a Facebook thread that was spread to teachers around the county and asked them to tell me what they would like the board to know. These comments can be summarized as one, teachers are crushed by their workload, and demoralized by the lost step increases. Here is a small sampling of the responses I received. From Miss K. To be on the step I should be. I'm on step 6, I should be on 12. To not have to live paycheck to paycheck. From Miss D. I second this. My husband and I are both teachers and have lost out on so much money because of the pay freezes. From a different Miss K. My one sentence sentiment. The class sizes are too big and the workload is simply out of control. Miss G, not trying to implement so many strategies that are the new thing and taking time to focus on learning something fully. Miss H, I'm on step 6, I should be on 13. I'm now required as a full release DC to conduct formal observations which count towards teacher ratings, in addition to reviewing SLOs, also for teacher ratings, but I'm not even being paid an appropriate teacher salary. Miss G, workload is unmanageable, grading, discipline, planning, SLOs. 2, pay is not competitive. If other counties can find the money, then AA needs to as well. We're the most underpaid civil servants in the state, police included. Number 3, student discipline. We need stricter enforcement. Repeat offenders affect the learning environment. Number 5, non-teaching positions. We need to bring people back into the classrooms. Ms. R, I'm tired of being cursed at and called derogatory names, such as but not limited to, F you effing B, on almost a daily basis, 3 times a week minimum. What other profession aside from police deals with this? And then on top, we don't get raises or we have to beg but deal with all of this. Some days I feel like a warrior getting through battle. Ms. B, I want to feel respected as a professional. I do not want to have to beg every year for pay increases that we deserve and were promised. This one had 16 likes. I want respect as well. I'm tired of not having any autonomy. We don't have a choice with our SLOs anymore. I'm planning 15 guided reading lessons in addition to all of the daily instruction, as well as differentiating everything with very little planning time. Miss K, I just moved back in with my mother at age 46. Miss R, I'd like to be able to live in the county with a family on 2 teachers' salary. Ms. Q, I want to be valued for my loyalty to the children of AACPS, not be paid less than new hires with the same experience. This one had 30 likes. Miss O, I want to be trusted to teach my students using my 29 years of knowledge and experience. Not all of my students need to take hundreds of tests every year. I will leave you, that was only a sampling of the comments that I received. I actually received about 10 pages of responses to my question, and I will leave a copy for you, and I hope that you look at every single word of it, because the teachers in this county are begging for help. We're begging for some relief. We're crushing underneath the weight of our workload, and we're demoralized by the state of our pay. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lisa Pline. I'm with Annapolis High School. I'm a parent. This is my actually last year in the Anne Arundel County school system. I've been actively involved in the PTAs at Annapolis High School and Bates Middle School. I'm here to support the teacher pay issue and the challenge school stipend issues. There was some sense that we won last year. The sense only that we won by not losing was very frustrating, I think, to many of us involved. I certainly want to support everything the teachers have said here tonight, as well as Ms. Fiedler from Profits. I will add that again, it is still a problem. We are losing Anne Arundel County teachers to our counterparts. Annapolis High School alone lost 30 teachers last year to higher paying jobs. None of them were lateral. They were all to higher paying jobs in either neighboring counties or in administration. We lost them to Montgomery County, Howard County. We even lost one that got better pay in Delaware, for goodness sakes. The irony is that these teachers were in that prime of their career. These were the great teachers that were responsible for tremendous gains that I'm sure you all have seen the results of. Increase in graduation rates, increase in the kids taking AP tests, and increase in the scores those kids are getting, increase in the SAT scores, and increase in the number of children who are taking those SAT scores. The irony that the architects of that success have now left because they can get $10,000 to $12,000 more pay at a neighboring school system is just criminal. We still have some great teachers left. Ms. Lorenz, Mr. Serrano are some shining examples of that, and we don't want to lose them. So I beg you to please respect the requests these teachers have made for not only their step increases, but to try and make up for some of those step increases so we don't keep losing them to neighboring counties. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Kristen Lipitich. I'm a fourth grade teacher at Deal. I would first like to begin by thanking you for working with us so hard last year to ensure that our STEP was funded. I sat here earlier listening to all the wonderful things that are going on in our county, and it makes me proud. I'd like to shout out to my school. We also did an amazing veterans program and a community STEM night last night. I also went to I'm a Shady Side resident. I went to the Shady Side community outreach. It was just wonderful. It's just wonderful to live and work in this community. With that being said, I stand here before you this evening to ask you to work with us once again this year to ensure that we are retaining our amazing teachers by staying competitive with our surrounding counties. We are still so far behind counties that teachers are leaving us for is just an additional 10 to 20 minute drive away. I work I work every day with some of the most amazing teachers I've ever seen who tirelessly raise themselves up every day to make sure our students are receiving the best education possible. Many of these teachers are way behind on the STEP scale. My best friend and colleague who has national board certification and a master's plus 60 credits could be 8 steps ahead of where she is now and making $12,210 more for just a short drive to Howard County. She could not be here tonight because her husband must work nights so that he can stay home with their children during the day because they cannot afford childcare. It is these stories that are all too common in our county and forcing teachers out in droves to find employment elsewhere. Anne Arundel County teachers are some of the best in the state, and I'm asking you to please once again fight with us to fund our steps so that we can retain our wonderful teachers and be a wonderful county to live and work in again. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Teresa Sutherland, and I'm here to speak on 2 issues. First, thank you again for voting to shift start times next year. While my son graduates this year and won't benefit from the change, 13 minutes will make a difference. And while appreciative of your efforts to date, you are right to be concerned that the shift in elementary times will result in some of our littlest kids being too tired to learn in the afternoon and arriving home when the sun is setting. And you are aware that 7:30 falls short of what the science dictates and what the medical experts recommend for our teens. March is too late to receive a response from Dr. Arlotto about what can be done to address the late elementary times. The answer will undoubtedly have a budget implication, and you have to submit your budget in February. I ask you to instruct Dr. Arlotto to use the routing software to develop bell schedules for the 2018-19 school year by defining parameters such as no pickup before 7:30 and no drop-off after 4:30 for regular routes. While Dr. Arlotto says that the software was not purchased for that purpose, it certainly can be used for that purpose. I also ask you to include funding in the upcoming budget to ensure safe and healthy hours for all AACPS students from kindergarten through high school. Every child, regardless of their age or size, should be able to travel to and from school safely when they can both see and be seen and attend school during the hours they are biologically best prepared to learn. The second issue I want to discuss is your FY16 audited financial statements, which were recently released. I was disappointed to read that AACPS had to restate its health insurance fund balance again. The FY14 audit disclosed that FY13's expenses were overstated by $4.8 million. The FY15 audit disclosed that FY14's expenses were overstated by $3.8 million, and the FY16 audit disclosed that the FY15 health insurance expenses were overstated by $1.6 million. How can you or we, the public, rely on the health insurance fund projections put forth by the AACPS administration when your auditors have advised you for 2 years in a row that your internal controls are not sufficient to prevent or detect a material misstatement in the health insurance fund? Did your expenses really increase 9% last year when the national trend was only 6.5%? Or will we see another restatement in the FY17 audited financial statements? If the AACPS administration projections are accurate, the $2 million Dr. Arlotto has assigned for transfer to the health insurance fund is not going to prevent the fund from operating at a deficit in a matter of months. And that leads me to my concluding question. Given that it takes a couple of months to get an additional appropriation approved by the county, if you believe the administration's projections are accurate and the health insurance fund will be in a deficit in a matter of months, why haven't you already asked the county for additional funding? Thank you.
Three final cards: Kristen Etzel, Holly Kleiderline, and Deborah Wood.
Good evening, Dr. Arlotto, President Korbelak, and members of the board. My name is Kristen Etzel. I'm the organizer of the Fund Old Mill School Construction Group. I'm here tonight to speak up again for funding for the Old Mill Complex schools. I appreciate that last year several members of the board expressed frustration when the county executive's projected budget did not include capital funding for Old Mill schools or several other schools. Our group intends to follow the budget throughout the process and will continue to speak out at the county executive's budget hearings and at county council meetings. We do recognize that the board is following the MGT study priority list, and we acknowledge that the capital funding is included in the board's projected 6-year plan. However, the board's projected budget for fiscal year 18 last year included feasibility and design funding for Quarterfield and Rippling Woods Elementary Schools, as well as the new Old Mill West High School. Now that we're discussing the fiscal year 18 budget, that funding and the funding that would follow behind it for those schools and the other schools in the complex is pushed off another year and does not begin until fiscal year 19. We have been told that the year delay in the start of funding is directly related to the fact that the county did not fully fund the board's fiscal 17 request. However, last year, the board's total predicted or projected request for fiscal year 18 was over $271 million. This year, the total request for the current fiscal year 18 budget has been lowered to $234 million. That means the current budget is more than $36 million below what you expected to ask for when the budget was completed last year. If the funding for the Old Mill Complex schools is pushed back up to begin as originally planned in fiscal year 18, it would add approximately $14 million to the current fiscal year 18 request. The new total budget for fiscal year 18 would still be more than $22 million below what was projected to be the total request last year. Old Mill schools have been had funding promised and then delayed in previous years due to the recession and other factors. We've waited for many years, and we have our place in line according to the 2015 MGT study priority list. We're not asking to be pushed ahead of other schools above us on the MGT priority list. We just want to see our design funding begin in year 18 instead of 19 and see the corresponding funding in the projected 6-year plan to shift up accordingly. We know it's a large, long, complex project to complete from start to finish. That's why every year counts as far as kicking off the design and construction phases. Last year, the county included funding in their fiscal year 17 budget for land acquisition for this project. In September of this year, a detailed master plan document was issued with 4 options for the Old Mill Complex schools. Why the delay in voting on those 4 master plan options until next fall? Why the push till fiscal year 19 for design funding to begin? Thank you.
Holly.
I have a handout for all of you with some graphics that would help to understand the presentation. Good evening, President Korbelak, Dr. Arlotto, and board members. My name is Holly Kleiderline, and I am the school counselor at Oak Hill Elementary in Severna Park. I'm a national board certified teacher, renewed, and a point of contact for the Counselors Association of Anne Arundel County. Tonight I'm advocating for lower counselor to student ratios at the elementary level, and will use my school as an illustration. The first graph that you'll be able to see shows Oak Hill's enrollment growth. Oak Hill now has close to 700 students. There are 2 different colored lines on the graph. The county counts pre-K students who attend for half a day as half a child. So there's a difference between total enrollment and full-time equivalent. I have never handled half a violent outburst, never met with half a parent, never seen half a cumulative file, have never made half a phone call, conducted half an observation, or collaborated with half a teacher. There is no such thing as half a child. I am the school counselor for 695 students. The second graph shows Oak Hill's rate of major referrals since 2009, the first year we implemented PBIS. We're seeing a similar upward trend in major referrals that we see across the county. I suspect much of that spike has to do with rapid enrollment increases and ballooning student-to-teacher ratios. 2009 was a seminal year. There's been much testimony about the salary freezes, but teachers were squeezed in another way. The county abandoned their recommended student-to-teacher ratios in the youngest grades and adopted the state recommendation, which was higher. Those ratios have never gone back, and students are paying the price. If you're wondering what kind of serious issues elementary counselors need to address, look at the next graphic. 439 reports of suicidal threats or gestures and 114 reports of self-injurious behaviors were recorded at the elementary level in 15-16. Some might point out that this indicates a smaller rate of reporting compared to other levels. I'll remind you, though, that each elementary school has one counselor. I work with students in pre-K and ECI through 5th grade, so I am involved with every expression of suicidal ideation or self-injurious behavior. Oak Hill is not an anomaly. According to last year's data, we have 22 elementary schools with over 600 students and 8 elementary schools at or above 700 students. Broadneck Elementary at 809 students is larger than 7 of our middle schools. How many counselors does Broadneck have? That's right, 1. If you're serious about closing the achievement gap, improving parent involvement, increasing attendance rates, teaching social emotional skills, addressing serious behavior that increase non-public placement of early childhood students by 300%, then hire additional elementary school counselors. Go back to adopting the smaller class sizes of 2009. Freeze spending on any expansion of magnet programs and look into expanding alternative county programs to reduce non-public placements. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Deborah Wood, and I'm here just once again to talk about starting school later. We thank you very much for the 13-minute shift planned for next year, and we hope this exercise will help to pave the way for the eventual transition to optimal school hours for all students. I'm just here as a reminder that this is a move for next year and just the first step. And we're hopeful that we will soon get an indication of a plan, a timeline, a committee, some way of addressing all the collateral issues that will need to be worked out for childcare, for sports, for after-school jobs, so that the community can plan for this eventual transition to high school starting no earlier than 8:30 in the morning. I did want to mention that I voted for everybody to stay in that was already on the school board. And I'm also, people ask me, is this a yes or no question? So 5 other votes that I know of personally went in that direction. And one reason is I'm tired of explaining the reason, and yet we've heard that we all agree with the reason. But I just have the feeling that there's not enough understanding of how important being awake and alert for high school is. 1, it helps you to be there if you're awake, and 2, you can retain what's going on that day if your brain is ready to process information because they were able to sleep last night and store away the information from the day before. And this is not just schoolwork, but all the relationship issues, all the life planning issues, all the life and death, will you take this dare or not dare that teenagers give each other, is much easier to handle when you've had a good night's sleep. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have any additional completed cards. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to address the board regarding an item that is not on today's agenda? Okay, we'll move on to action items. Item 4.01 is administrative personnel appointments. Dr. Arlato, your recommendation, please.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend that the personnel listed on the attached sheet be promoted and or appointed.
Do you have a motion? Okay. All those in favor? Motion passes 8-0-0. The next 3 items on the agenda, 4.03, 4, and 5, are policy revisions first reading. The first policy is on grading, code II. And we have a presentation.
Yes.
Good evening. For the record, I am Jessica Kutchis, representing the Legislative and Policy Office, and I'm excited to speak to you tonight about the Latin Honors Recognition, also known as the Cum Laude Honors Recognition. This will be a new recognition for Anne Arundel County Public School graduates that will honor their academic achievement and success. On the panel with me tonight is Dr. Maureen McMahon, Deputy Superintendent of Schools for Academic and Strategic Initiatives, Mr. Anthony Austin, Director of Equity and Accelerated Student Achievement, Dr. Kathy Kubik, Associate Superintendent for School Performance, Ms. Alyssa Whitaker, Senior at Glen Burnie High School, and Mr. Jason Dykstra, Executive Director of the Instructional Data Division. As you are aware, we have been working on a comprehensive review of our grading policy. As a part of that review, we identified 4 major areas in need of updates. Strategically, we have addressed each one of these areas individually beginning in the fall of 2015 when we moved from a final examination model to a quarterly assessment model, which brings assessments closer to the time of instruction and allows for assessments to truly inform instruction. In the spring of 2016, we provided language updates regarding our redo or opportunity for mastery provisions of the grading policy in an effort to better align our practices around this part of the policy and to provide consistency across the district. Tonight, we are here to talk to you about the addition of the Latin Honors Recognition, and in the spring, we will be back to discuss one more provision of the grading policy. Throughout this comprehensive grading policy update, we met with and vetted each grading policy revision with many stakeholders, including the CAC, CRASC, TAC, principals, PIAC, County Council of PTAs, Superintendent's Teen Advisory, Superintendent's Teacher Advisory, and other staff groups and interested parties. The feedback we received from these groups informed and helped shape the different revisions we have brought to you regarding the grading policy. I will now turn it over to Dr. McMahon, who will talk a bit about the philosophy of this new recognition for our students.
Thank you, Ms. Kuchis. As Ms. Kuchis said in her remarks, we're excited to be moving to the Latin Honors model. As you know, our AACPS teaching and learning is grounded in a belief in the growth mindset philosophy. All students can, and all students can achieve greatness, and they can reach their potential. We believe that. Students are all on a learning journey, and we want to recognize them when they reach excellence against the high achievement standards we set in our AACPS courses. But we want to do more than simply recognize the students with the highest GPAs in each of our high schools. We want to support our students to make good choices, to choose courses aligned to their passions and their interests, and then do well in those courses that they choose. We want our students to learn what it means to be well-rounded young people, learners who know themselves, persons who take risks, get a little bit outside their comfort zones, students who work hard at their academics and play hard on the sports fields, the theater stages, the concert halls, the art studios, and in the many, many, many club competition venues they routinely visit inside the district, at the state and the national levels. We want our students to make healthy choices in school, choices that will help them learn what areas they enjoy and what areas they may wish to entertain for college and career in the future. College and employers, we know this, are looking for the healthy, well-rounded student. Confucius once said, "The will to win, the desire to succeed, the urge to reach your full potential, these are the keys that will unlock the door to personal excellence." Within each of our students lies this potential for excellence. When students succeed at the high levels we have set in our high school coursework, we want to celebrate those successes. We want to celebrate with every single student who reaches these high standards of excellence. My colleagues will now tell you a little bit more about the details of the Latin honors system that we want to move and we eventually want to implement in Anne Arundel County Public Schools. Mr. Austin.
Thank you. Latin honors are awards of distinction given to students who meet or exceed specific levels of academic achievement. This system is widely used by colleges and universities, in addition to a growing number of high schools throughout the country. Latin honors not only have a long academic tradition, but the system is familiar and understandable to college admission officers and prospective employers. Latin honors represent a much broader spectrum of academic accomplishments. The three levels of Latin honors include summa cum laude, which translates to with highest honor for students who have earned a 4.3 or higher weighted GPA, magna cum laude, with great honor for students who have earned a weighted GPA of 4.29 to 4.0, and cum laude, which translates to with honor or with praise for students who have earned an unweighted GPA of 3.4 to 4.0. This is reflective with distinct academic standards, while also giving more students the opportunity to work hard and earn recognition for their achievements. Latin honors are more fundamentally equitable. When academic recognition is based on student-to-student comparisons, rather than the same consistent standards, one student's success is another student's failure. And when success and failure are defined by fractionally small differences in GPA, the fundamental fairness of the system is called into question. If the Latin honor system had been in effect for the graduating class of 2016, the students that would have been honored would have included students in all racial and ethnic backgrounds, students receiving ELL services, free and reduced meal services, and special education services. As you can imagine, some of our students decline to take courses or pursue personal interests or passions because they present a mathematical disadvantage when it comes to calculating GPA, such as a non-weighted child development course, for example. The Latin honor system makes it possible for any student to achieve honor status, rather than only 2 students per school, whose performance may be based on relatively small differences in GPA. The Latin honor system recognizes all students whose performance meet high academic standards.
We plan to phase in this edition for the current high school students by adding the Latin honors recognition for this year's graduating class of 2017. High school students will experience a gradual phase out of the valedictorian salutatorian honor, with the class of 2019 experiencing the Latin honors recognition without the valedictorian and salutatorian honor. I will now turn it over to Ms. Alyssa Whitaker, a senior at Glen Burnie High School, who will share her student perspective on this matter.
So just a side note, I am speaking on behalf of myself, not Krask. And kind of just piggybacking off of what everyone else is saying tonight, it's all about equality and equity. Personally, I went to an MYP IB middle school, Old Mill, and I came into high school with 4 high school credits. I have counterparts who didn't necessarily receive that opportunity, so they didn't come into high school with those credits. So statistically, it would be very hard for them to achieve valedictorian status over me, who I have an upper hand above them. And I think that it also ensures healthy competition amongst students. One student doesn't have to take another one down to make sure that they're going to be on top, because they can all be on top together. I think at graduation, you might look on stage and you'll see the valedictorian talking or the salutatorian talking, and you'll say, I was in the same calculus class as that person, but yet at graduation, they look more important than me. They're being recognized, you know. So I do think that it also does something to your mental health. And along with students who they curve and schedule their essentially their classes and their lives around being valedictorian. And I know I was that kid coming into freshman year. I had to be valedictorian. I had to get straight A's. I had to be at the top of my class. And at some point in time, I had a realization, an epiphany that is not what really matters. What matters is making the softball team. What matters is being second chair celloist. Those are the things that matter. And I think by switching to this program, kids can really follow their passions. It doesn't have to be so competitive and so serious all the time.
So let's end with this image. What do we not see? We don't see only two kids at the top of the mountain. We don't see kids competing against each other. Well said. What we do see is many kids on the top, on their journey to the top of the mountain, competing not against each other, but against the different standards at each level of the Latin honors system. Students can choose their own goal, choose their own path, and their own mountaintop, and students can work together on the journey depending on the different standard they choose. We hope you join us in our enthusiasm for the Latin honors system, and at this time we'll take any questions. Thank you.
Mr. Gilliland.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you all for this presentation. Ms. Whitaker, thank you for being here and joining in on this as well. Just a couple of questions that I'll ask relative to other school systems and the adoption that may be occurring elsewhere. Would you be able to tell us if other local school systems have adopted this in the state?
So that's a good question, Mr. Gilliland. No, in Maryland at this point in time, no one else has adopted the Latin honor system. However, across the nation, there have been school systems adopted this. Certainly, higher ed, is very familiar with this system. It's recognized across higher ed nationwide. But in the private school sector, this has been something that's well recognized for a long period of time. But now we have major school systems. The most recent one I think that's been in the news is Wake County in North Carolina, the largest school system in North Carolina, public school system, and they adopted it in June.
And you mentioned or made reference to higher education community. Could you give us a sense of what their feedback as the school system in North Carolina, and then certainly where it's occurred elsewhere, has the reception among the higher education community been fairly positive?
So what the higher education community told to us, and a few of us on this committee have spoken to admissions counselors and other folks in higher ed, both in Maryland and at some of the most prestigious schools in the nation. And what they've told us with respect to looking for students, and what we see it actually represented in the applications for new freshmen now over the last few years. They're looking for a well-rounded student who is excelling in what they choose to do in the classroom. This is not a trophy for every student. This is really, the Latin honor system is saying what you choose to do well in that. In other words, that's our jobs, right? But what they're saying is we want that student who has explored and who has some passions and interests that they've been experiencing for a few years, and where they can really say, I'm going into college, and I might not know what I want to be 4 years from now, but I know what I like. I've had some chance to explore what I like, what I don't like. Maybe I played in the band, the cello, or I took art classes, and I can be value added to that university community. I can talk about what I want from you as an institution of higher ed, and I can talk about what I'll bring to the institution of higher ed because of what I know about myself and my passions, desires, and expertise.
And just a final question then to drill back to Maryland, maybe a curveball a bit here, but if we're the pioneer in this area compared to our counterparts, do you know if any of our other counterparts are exploring this within Maryland?
Right, so we have various systems. We've spoken with a few folks in Howard County, and they're talking about it. I do not know, I cannot say how seriously, but they're talking about it. We also want to bring to your attention that although Montgomery County has not gone to the Latin honors, they have, and Jason can speak a little more, in greater depth than I on this, but they have done away with the ranking. So the GPA issue has changed in Montgomery County for them.
So for quite a few years now in Montgomery County, they absolutely do not rank students at all, even upon request. So there is no class ranking system in Montgomery County Public Schools, and the reports back from them indicate that it is working just fine for the college admissions process, scholarships, etc. Those students are able to showcase themselves through applications, essays, resumes, and their students are doing quite well. But there is no class ranking system in Montgomery County Public Schools, either on a transcript or behind the scenes, even in their computer system. Yeah, there is no valedictorian or salutatorian, and as a result of no class rank.
Ms. Williams.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions. My first question would be, why after the seniors of next year will Val-Sal completely be phased out instead of phasing it out with the freshmen of this year? Because that's what it reads in the policy, correct?
It's a great question. It really is it's a really great idea, and we really want to do it sooner than later. We really believe that it's best for the majority of our students. We want to recognize excellence across the board, regardless of what program of study you choose. And at that point, we want to get to that sooner than later. What we know very specifically is that the students who are in the competition, they've set that as their goal. Most of the time that really starts in junior and senior year. That's when most of our AP, IB courses are offered, and so that's when you have the opportunity to pursue that weighted GPA that would potentially lead you to be in that top 1% and potentially number 1 or number 2 in your class. That doesn't typically impact freshmen and sophomores, so the quicker we can get to a more balanced recognition system that recognizes all of our students for their outstanding achievement, I think that's better for the system.
Thank you. Okay, and then my last question would just be, are we still going to make class ranks available for students individually if they still want to see that, since it won't be recognized at graduation, or what's going to happen with that?
So our intent is that, in fact, if they needed those class ranks for a service academy application, for scholarships, competitive scholarships, some require a rank, or it's desirable to have a rank, we will be able to offer that rank to the students for any process they're going through at the time of college application.
Thank you.
Mrs. Birch.
Well, Ms. Williams stole one of my questions. Another question that I have is, how did you choose the grade point averages for each of the levels? Because obviously it's different than college, because college doesn't have weighted grades.
It's an excellent question. We played with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of transcripts. We built a model that we could kind of play with to see, but we had several criteria that was really important to the committee and to all the stakeholders that we went out to see. We initially started with some kind of give-me's, if you will. We wanted to make sure that we recognized approximately 20% of a graduating class. We didn't want to recognize too many, but we didn't want to recognize too few. We also wanted to make sure that we had students from any student group have the opportunity to earn honors. And so we also wanted to make sure that each high school in our system would have students in all 3 levels of the cum laude system. And so we kept playing with it. We played with 4-4, we played with 4-3, and we looked at 3 graduating classes as a representative sample. So we looked at all of the graduates from class of 2014, class of 2015, and most recently the class of 2016. And in each case, the numbers that you saw on the screen tonight were very representative. Summa cum laude comes out around the top 5, maybe 6% of the class. Magna cum laude comes out right around a little bit more than that, 6 to maybe 7% of the class. And cum laude, very similarly, about 6 or 7% of the class. And what we found is that all student groups, as Mr. Alston mentioned, were represented in that. Most of those students all had A's and B's, which are largely attributed to outstanding academic achievement. And so we really felt comfortable with both who was getting the recognition, what the profiles of their transcripts looked like, and how it was represented in all of our high schools in the district.
I also wanted to comment, and I want to say thank you so much for doing this, because I mean, I don't know if you remember, this is something I've been talking about for years, because since I got on the board, and a lot of times it's been our own student board members who have stressed me out because of what they're trying to do. And, you know, I remember one year having a board member who told me what her GPA was and that she was 19th in her class. And I said, how could you possibly be 19th in your class with this GPA that was phenomenal? And I think she knew everyone's GPA 18 and up, like who they were and what all the GPAs were. And I thought that was unhealthy. It seemed wrong to know all of that. And, you know, she's telling me how many classes everybody's taking and what they're taking and why they can't take photography. And that worried me. It didn't seem right that that people were taking 15 and 16 and 17 AP classes so that they could be at the top of the class, when maybe you just want to learn how to take a picture, because really you're going to use that a lot more in your life than some of those AP classes, which you're going to take in college anyway. Isn't it, it's interesting you said the school system in North Carolina that did this. Isn't it Chapel Hill that has now said that it doesn't matter if you took 5 AP classes or 15, five AP classes means you're an AP student, according to them, when you apply to University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill.
So I can't specifically speak to North Carolina, but I can say across the nation, the institutions of higher education are really changing that expectation of what it means to be an excellent student. And they're changing it with the idea, not about grades, because they still want to see excellence, but they're saying, you know, we need to see that you challenged yourself. Right. But we don't need to see an unhealthy challenge of yourself. Right. And so
yeah.
you're right.
I think it was Chapel Hill that I remember reading that about, that they said we don't need you to take 15 AP classes in high school. You know, if you've taken 5, we recognize that as being an AP student. 15 does not get you any more from us than 5 would have. And I think that's something students need to realize. There's no reason to kill yourself. You know, you're 16. Be 16. Thank you.
Mr. Green.
I've got 3 questions, which I hope are quick. Why are the criteria for Summa and Magna weighted and the criteria for cum laude unweighted? That's the first question. The second question is, have any of the jurisdictions that you looked at outside of Maryland adopted these Latin honors, the 3 traditional Latin honors, but maintained the valedictorian and salutatorian status? And then 3, did you all consider that as an option?
So Jason, do you want to take the first one?
The primary purpose to the cum laude being a unweighted GPA is we have some, when we did all of these kind of audits of transcripts from the class of 2014, 15, and 16, what we discovered very quickly is we have some truly outstanding students in this district that are in very specialized programs, such as mentioned earlier tonight, CAT North and CAT South, that don't have the opportunity because of those programs to be in advanced weighted courses. Sometimes our music students, our art students, a lot of our theater art students who truly excel in the classroom in these really awesome programs don't take advanced weighted courses, and their transcripts are absolutely phenomenal. And we wanted a recognition system and are proposing a recognition system in Anne Arundel County Public Schools where any student would have the opportunity to meet that standard and get recognition.
One follow-up, does the implication of that mean that if they're not taking the weighted classes and they have an unweighted GPA of 4.1, for example, they might not qualify for Magna? Is that what that means?
That would be correct. So Magna is exclusively, as proposed, a weighted GPA, and cum laude is an unweighted GPA. And you can't have a 4.1 unweighted GPA. The highest would, if you got straight A's and you never took an honors or an advanced class, you would have a 4.0 GPA.
I have a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old, so I'm not quite here yet.
I'm thinking about that. So I'll take your second question. Did your 6-year-old, your two-year-old are going to love the answer. So one of the cool things about working on a policy like this is we get to vet it through a lot of different groups. And you asked about why not maintain both. And I'm going to give you the voice of parents, kids, and then our high school principals who are really close to this issue. And what we heard from those groups was what the new system does is honor and recognize more kids for all the right reasons. And if you leave that other system in the background, then you're overshadowing the purpose of bringing the new one in. And I have to go back to this wonderful picture. It's that you have 3 different very high levels in the honor system. A 3-4 unweighted, think about that. A 3-4 unweighted is pretty much all A's and B's. Then to get a 4.0 weighted, you're going to have taken some challenging courses, but still have done well. And then to get a 4.3 weighted, I mean, to see the transcripts when Mr. Dykstra laid them out, we're like, wow, that's quite an accomplishment. So to have that be the new goal takes away everything that the other system was bringing in as a backdrop and a distractor. So we really did. We said we do have to honor the fact that some of those kids, the juniors and seniors, have already done some course scheduling and had that in their mind. But if we can now counsel our younger students into taking these healthier options and honoring them too when they get to graduation, it would be a much better option for our students.
And did any of the jurisdictions that you looked at outside of Maryland go to the Latin honors but maintain the valedictorian and the salutatorian?
Not that we saw, with the most recent one being Wake County, and they chose not to do that as well.
I think another added value to that is that also, like we shared, it allows the students to participate in the courses that are their passion, right? So it shouldn't be that you have to choose between taking that orchestra class, you can be the second seat cello, because you aren't going to get a weighted GPA for that. Right, so by offering both the unweighted and the weighted, it allows for that aspect, but then also with moving to that system, it allows for students to pursue their passion, to pursue their love, and be that well-rounded student that we all want all of our children to be.
I think this is fantastic, and our unweighted GPA standard of 3.4 is higher than the standard that the National Collegiate Honors Council keeps for college students in our nation, which is a 3.25. So we're still setting the bar high, and I think it's exciting that we're going to be able to recognize more kids. Do you have anything?
I just want to say thank you to the team. This has been a conversation. This has been a 5-year conversation. And when Mr. Dykstra says we look at transcripts, there were many, many hours spent in conference rooms putting students' transcripts and scores and lots of different options on the table. And so I want to thank this team. It's been a long conversation. Thank you for your hard work. And it's really exciting for our students, so thank you.
And how cool is it that we're going to be the first ones in Maryland to do it? Awesome. I just want to point out that the 30-day comment period is next. So the public, especially including our students, whatever they want to share, please encourage them, CRASC, to get online. We don't always get a lot of online traffic on policies, but this is one we want to hear from the students and parents as well. So that'll be next. I do have one card on this issue, Antonia Berry, to come up, and if there's any other public comment, we can take that at this time. Maybe she left. Oh, you're going to pass. Okay. Anyone else that would like to speak on this?
Hi, Dr. Arlato, President Korbelak, and the board. My name is Janet Norman. I'm an Annapolis High School parent currently and for the next 4.5 years. And I do want to thank the team for their very thorough examination of this issue. I agree. I think it's a great improvement to have kids, instead of trying to game the system for the highest scores, that they really do explore what could be future careers and future passions. I think that's wonderful. I would urge you to think about different ways. Well, first of all, I'm encouraged because this is one of the first discussions I have heard at the many Board of Ed meetings I have gone to about high school issues. And so thank you for paying attention to high school issues, because I think they often get lost. The wellness of our high school students, you know, their sleep needs, their often we're only hearing about discipline issues at the high school level. And so I'm glad that we're talking about achievement for high schoolers. I would hope that you're going to disseminate this widely, because there is a bit of a problem in how you all put the word out about policy changes that are proposed and then voted on by the board. You mentioned that this was circulated through the CAC and the County Council of PTAs. Well, there's only 12 high schools. It would have been great if it could have come to the high school PTAs, because I attend every one of them, and we had not heard anything about the policy revisions nor had a chance to provide input. If you are assuming that the CAC is a functional conduit for information up and down the system, that has not been the case in the Annapolis cluster for the past 3 years or so. So if you're only going to the CAC and expecting that they're giving you input from parents, that's not happening. So we'd love it for you to come to our PTAs. We have PTA Facebook pages. We could disseminate, and you could really get input from parents if you reached out to us in those ways. So I hope that this is a good policy, but if you have other policies that are affecting, the other policy I wanted to talk about was the standardization of redo policies and things.
This is only, we're only discussing this policy right now.
Okay, well, the slideshow talked about 4 different elements in their redo. So I just wanted to bring up the fact that that they were examining that 8 or 9 of the other high schools have opportunities to redo work and have club meetings and things during the school day. Annapolis High does not have that. Our students do not have transportation home after the end of the school day. If they miss the school bus, they're not able to stay after as easily as the other suburban schools that have this all these meeting times and redo times during their school day. So I'd like you to address the inequities there, provide any additional supports that Annapolis High needs to be able to have those meetings during the day, so our students can achieve at as high a level as the other students that have nest hour to redo work and have the benefits that our students are not able to, because the consequences of non-success in our cluster are very frightening. What's happening with a lot of our students. So thank you very much.
All right, the next policy is item 4.04, also an information item on student publications, JCB. This is also a first reading.
Again, for the record, Jessica Kutchis, representing the Policy and Legislative Office. The Division of Curriculum and Instruction and the Office of School Performance brings policy JCB student publications to you for first reading. This policy was last updated May 20th, 1991, and the updated policy and regulation provides guidance regarding freedom of expression in student journalism in accordance with Maryland law. This policy will be posted on our website for 30 days for public comment, and we will answer any questions you have about it at this time.
Mrs. Birch?
I love it. I think it's wonderful.
Thank you.
I don't have any other board comments. Is there any public comment on this item? All right, so we'll post that one as well.
Yes.
Item 4.05 is our last policy tonight, first reading, student organizations, JCL.
The Office of School Performance and the Division of Student Support Services brings policy JCL to you for first reading. The policy was last updated May 20th, 1991. The updated policy and regulation provide guidance regarding student organizations that desire to conduct meetings or activities in Anne Arundel County Public Schools. The policy will be posted on our website for 30 days public comment, and we'll answer any questions you have related to it.
I don't know. Mrs. Burge again.
I have a question actually about this one and the other one. Were there not regulations before on these policies?
That's correct. So they are new regulations.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Is there any public comment on this item? All right. So that one will be up on the web as well.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next items are information to action items, design development documents for 6 different schools. I would like to bundle and move 4.06 through 4.11 from information to action. All those in favor? Okay, we now have an action item. Dr. Arlato, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend that the items 4.06 through 4.11 be approved. They include open space classroom enclosures, as well as kindergarten and classroom additions.
Mrs. Hummer.
Excuse me, I have to nip my mouth. I just put it in there and I was like, oh, that was a bad move. I have a question about Shadyside and Brockbridge. The media center will still be an open space. It will not be enclosed. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And then just a question. They're identical buildings. Brockbridge has more students than Shadyside, but Shadyside's getting an addition and Brockbridge is not. Why is that? What was the decision behind that?
Larry Albert, Supervisor of Planning, Design, and Construction. The difference is because of the way the schools are utilized. Shadyside is actually has a lower SRC, state rated capacity, so it actually needs more room, and that's why we did the classrooms to that addition. We'll reanalyze Brockbridge though, because with Monarch moving out, we weren't sure exactly where all that was going to fall, so we wanted Monarch to work for a couple of years before we made a final decision on whether Brockbridge really needed an addition or not.
It's growing, so it hasn't, so I don't think it's getting smaller. And
right.
So I was just curious about how that decision was made. Thank you.
I don't have any other board comments. Are there any public comments on these items?
Oh, wait, I do have another one. I'm sorry. Looking at Solly Elementary, it says that currently it has 780 kids at Solly, and even with the addition, their capacity is still going to be under that. That's crazy. I mean, I'm not criticizing y'all. I'm just like, what's going on over near Solly Elementary that it's just bursting out of the seams?
The area between Solly and Marley is where Tanyard Springs. There's a large group of developments going on that have all coming online rapidly, and there's some new areas that are still expanding. They're just starting, Hogan Development's just starting some developments out there currently, so it's growing faster than we can build.
So we're doing the addition on Marley and on Solly, and that will help a little bit, but it looks like we're going to be quickly out of those as well.
Yeah, we're even increasing High Point to help with it, but it's just hopefully further down. MGT has Mountain Corridor,
right,
so hopefully at some point that will slow things down a little bit.
We'll see. All right, thank you.
All right, all those in favor? All right, the motion passes 900. Last, we have 2 review items. Item 5.01, the Annapolis Peninsula redistricting. Mrs. Nally.
I ask, along with Mrs. Sasso, that we put this on the agenda. I have been studying, as we all have, and I understand, I listened to Alderman Ms. Finlayson, but I'm looking carefully, and I know there's 765 open elementary seats on the Annapolis Peninsula. I guess my concern is, and just to listen to everyone, if we redistrict now, I'm looking at this, we look at the overcrowded schools. There's Edgewater, which is going to be built. There's Hillsmere's only overcrowded by 19 students. Tyler Heights is our biggest issue. I guess, Dr. Arlotto, I'd like to ask you, what are the proposed changes in the Annapolis feeder system over the next 2 years that would impact school capacity? I'm looking at this. I don't want to redistrict and then turn around 2 years from now and redistrict again. I just don't see it. That's not. So I guess my question to you is, what's going to happen? Because what I see are, are some things that are going to occur in the next couple of years.
You're absolutely right, Ms. Nally. There are a number of things that have recently occurred, and will occur soon, we hope, and then into the future. So let me just remind you of some of those. Right now, as you know, we're working with the Children's Guild and Monarch, and that's something this board has been involved in for several years now. We are hoping that that comes online, but we don't know yet. We don't yet have a final resolution to some of the issues with the developer, and so we're hoping that that will come online. When that does come online, hopefully for this upcoming school year, then that will draw students. What that does right now is that leaves a question mark, of course, right? How many students from which schools? We don't know how many will choose that charter school, and it's only for the Annapolis cluster. So that leaves us a question mark, as you're well aware. As you know, we've recently revitalized West Annapolis, and we've increased seats. And at West Annapolis, we have, with now opening it, that enrollment is still in flux, right? We always have the new school effect that you're very well aware of, even at Davidsonville when you reopen Davidsonville, right. That new school effect. So we still have some families coming into West Annapolis. Again, a question mark for us. Rolling Knolls is another. We've just completed Rolling Knolls, added seats to that. It is currently under-enrolled, as is West Annapolis, but those numbers are growing. We're not really sure. Again, that leaves us a question mark for consideration. How many will be returning and coming back into the Rolling Knolls community? As you know, we revitalized Mills Parole in 2015, and those numbers, we've now got a good year under our belt. And those numbers, we're still just a few seats under capacity, about 30 or so seats under capacity, but that has now begun to settle. So with that given year, that helps us sort of better understand where we are with Mills Parole. As you know, we've completed a 6-classroom addition this past summer at Georgetown East and a 4-classroom addition at Eastport. So that has increased seats, and we'll continue to watch those enrollments to see how they settle out. And as you know, we're working to accelerate the Tyler Heights building, right? We're slated for 19, and we're hoping that with this year's budget that this board has already approved the capital budget moving forward, that we'll be able to accelerate and get Tyler into the FY18 budget as we move forward. So those are some of the things that, and then sort of further down the line, as you know, part of the MGT study will be Hillsmere. Those are all things that leave us a question mark about exactly where enrollments will be. So your concern is valid in terms of redistricting now and then into the future. But we do have concerns now, as you heard Ms. Finlayson talk about. It's something that we as a board, that we've talked about in staff. We do have some issues in the Annapolis cluster now with overcrowding.
I see that, but I guess my concern is, and the reason I raise this as a discussion among board members, I know we voted and to redistrict or to review or look into redistricting, but my concern is for families, you redistrict now and 2 years down the way, you could be redistricting again. And I don't like to see that. I don't like to see communities redistricted that close together. So that's a concern I have. I look and I see the overcrowding that Mrs. Finlayson spoke about is really Tyler Heights. I mean, there's not another school that is terribly overcrowded. Hillsmere's only 19 students over. And we have Edgewater. Edgewater at 133 over, but we're going to build a new Edgewater's going to be renovated, and we just keep. And I look at even at the high schools. Annapolis High School is under capacity. We're going to lose. It's not even listed. We're going to lose about 800 students when the new Crofton High School gets open from South River. I just think we ought to look very carefully at. I think we ought to look very carefully at what we have. I also do not want to see students from, this is my personal opinion, from Tyler Heights bust all the way, broken up and bust way away and out of their community school. So I think all of these things need to be carefully considered as these committees. It's a long way down the road. I mean, there are going to be committees and input, and I understand all that. But I just think that we ought to really pay very close attention as to what we have had since our vote, the kinds of things that we've had happen in terms of building plans. And like you said, we'll know about Monarch soon enough. That's just I'm just throwing that out for board discussion, guys. And
Mrs. Birch.
I don't actually think that any circumstances have changed since our vote. I think everything is still the same. I think that there are a lot of unknowns, but I think they were unknown when we made our vote. And I think that's why it goes to the study, it goes to the committees, and then they come back with what they think is a good recommendation. And once they do that, then we decide if it is appropriate to move forward or how to move forward, if that's the thing. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I don't think circumstances have changed. I think we're in exactly the same position with the same unknowns, which is why we recommended delaying the redistricting later than it normally happens. We said we didn't want to follow our normal calendar because we wouldn't have enough information at the normal time. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying. There are a lot of unknowns, but I think we need to let the committee do their work and come back to us with what they think could be a reasonable solution, or to tell us they don't think that there's a reasonable solution. But I don't think that we can sit here today and say there isn't a reasonable solution, because I don't think we have the information that could tell us that there is or isn't a reasonable solution. Because I don't think that saying that you can't redistrict is the right policy solution for this board. I don't think saying always redistricting is the right policy solution for this board. I think we have to always judge carefully, how do we make the best use of our resources? Because if we have empty seats and we have too many kids somewhere else, I mean, that is something we have to consider. But we have a lot to consider, and we need the committees to look at it and tell us what they think the best solution is.
If I could jump in at that point, because you make several really good points, Ms. Burge, but let me add to that we are under obligation by the state to look at redistricting, right? So when we ask for state funds to build schools or put additions, one of the things the state always asks us, and the state has all the numbers that you have, that the committee will have, and they look at them on a yearly basis. And so when we go up each year in front of the IEC and the Department of Public Works to ask for money to support our construction program, your construction program, one of the things they'll always ask and look for is, has that jurisdiction attempted to solve their overcrowding issues from one place to another, from full seats to empty seats within their own realm, right? Have they been able to take care of their own house before they allow us and give us money to then build additions and to build schools? So it's one of the things that the state will absolutely always look at, and if we can't say that we have attempted that work, then it's something the state many times will say, well, then we're not going to be able to move forward with money. And if we don't get state money, we don't get local money.
Ms. Sasso?
For all of the redistricting people that are here, Edgewater, Tyler Heights, Annapolis, just like Dr. Arlotto has presented and Teresa, the board is not stating that we are going to redistrict you. Once again, like Dr. Arlotto said, it is our responsibility fiscally and basically as a policy and procedure that we must follow. So as your committees meet, just bring back to us what you would like to have in your community. Basically, if, you know, sustainability of your community, of your areas, of your schools, basically what your communities really feel for yourself and for the group. And I know that Edgewater is very much, you know, we do not want it, but just remember, like Dr. Arlotto said, we have responsibilities fiscally, and basically we need you to work with us. So give us back, you know, solid information, which you have, because we have it here. But at the same time, I went to Tyler's school, which is basically all Latin American people, most of it, like 80%. And one of the things was so that you can see the different ways of thinking. You know, we were looking at Monarch to be a place where we could put a lot of these overcrowding. And while sitting there with the principal and the parents at the PTA meeting, most of them did not want to go to Monarch. So basically, we're looking at the fact, you know, a school might be available, but it might not be the solution. And it's also for the board and for myself to work. You know, Monarch is a good option, why they don't want it, you know, and why they should want it. So basically, just work with us so that we know what you want, and don't feel that we are your enemies, please. You know, we really are trying to work with the community and to be fiscally responsible for the monies that is given to us. Thank you.
Mr. Grannon?
I just have a quick factual question for Dr. Arlotto, or informational question. Could you elaborate a little bit on what you mean by this? The state requires that we consider redistricting, and what I mean by that is, I think we're already considering redistricting, right? That's the purpose of this meeting. But are our determinations as to whether redistricting is appropriate second guessed at the state level, whereas they actually look at a certain school and say, well, you all decided not to redistrict, but you were under capacity in school X and Y and Z?
So I think the short answer is yes. Alex can give you, as Mr. Sheknovich can give you some more of a bird's eye view as he works with IEC and the Board of Public Works as we go through the process and requesting funds for construction.
So Alex Sheknovich, Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Grannon, I'll sort of paint a picture for you. So the state does not mandate that we redistrict, nor would they compel us to undertake a specific redistricting solution. They do, however, have the power of the purse, and resolving overcapacity issues where you have that opportunity is essentially the lowest rung. It's the least costly, most efficient way to solve a capacity consideration in the following construct. So if you have a school, one single school that's over capacity, but the two schools adjacent to it have seats available, you can relocate, balance the loads amongst those three buildings. It doesn't require any capital expenditures. You can reallocate staffing, et cetera, and essentially solve that problem with no outlay of public funding. So that is why, as Dr. Arlotto said, that is the first direction that we are essentially mandated to look at. The state does not, however, compel that we do that. But what they do have is the power of the purse. So, in my artificial example here, say that we are asking to construct a school for 600 youngsters, and the state has a very formulaic driven way of arriving at the maximum participation that they will fund a school. We're asking to build a school for 600 youngsters. That would have yielded X dollars from the state. However, they will look at what they call adjacent schools. The Maryland Department of Planning does that. They're one of the three governing agents on the Interagency Committee of School Construction. They will look at all, not just the school in question, in our case, for example, Tyler, to make it a little bit more relevant, but they'll look at the adjacent schools, which is Eastport and Hillsmere and Georgetown East and Germantown. That's sort of the concentric ring around Tyler. And they're going to say, well, you could have, and yet elected not to avail yourselves of the opportunity of redistricting out possibly 150 or 250 of those students. And therefore, we are not going to follow this prescriptive formulaic algorithm to fund you at a 600-person school, we, the state, will only fund you at a 400 or a 450-person school, because, again, you could have redistricted and built a smaller school. We're not going to pay for you to essentially now overbuild. In that scenario, if we elect to move forward in that vein, that delta, the gap that the state now has essentially derated their contribution towards the school, if we yet still intend to build a school of 600, and we can so do so, but the local unit of county government would now have to pick up that entire delta. So that's essentially, as Dr. Arlotto said, in the hierarchy, the first rung, again, because it's the most efficient from a fiscal perspective, public policy perspective, is to redistrict. Then they say, could you successfully put on a minor addition? Could you successfully renovate it? Could you successfully renovate it with an addition? The top rung, the most difficult hurdle to overcome, is actually to construct a brand new school in their algorithm.
When will the state make its determination about a contribution to the renovation of Edgewater? First, and second, what impact could any decision to redistrict or not redistrict Edgewater have on that contribution?
So the state will be in a position. Their calendar, the state's calendar and the county's calendar are not synchronized. The state's decision on what they will do with Edgewater in terms of their participation for construction funding, et cetera, they will be in a position to make that decision next December. It's my understanding that the board's timeline would allow the redistricting process to conclude by the 30th of April 2017, which is the last possible date by state law for the board to consider such action, should it be implemented by August of 17. So your redistricting calendar would be ahead of the state making that determination for construction funding eligibility next December 17, because you would have taken your vote by April 30th, no later than April 30th of 17.
I just have a couple of well, I have one question, a couple of points. How many seats will Monarch Annapolis have when it opens? Or when it's filled?
So the contract essentially contemplates for the first year has a base number of 530 students, but they do have a capacity. They have the ability under contract to accept an additional essentially 10% over that. So I believe the first year they're looking at a target of around 580 first year enrollees, and then they will continue to grow a grade level at a time for the next 3 years, ultimately arriving at a number of around 700 students.
So right now today we have 765 open elementary seats on the Annapolis Peninsula. And we could have another 700 seats available through Monarch. So we're talking about 1,465 available seats in the Annapolis cluster.
Theoretically.
For elementary.
Theoretically, yes.
If Monarch got approved.
Right.
And if Monarch was still was just a contract school for Annapolis and not a countywide charter.
Yes, but as Dr. Arlotto indicated, the newest school effect is real. We experience that each and every time. So I think even with that today's number of 765, I believe you referenced, that number we expect to shrink through the new school effect as we continue to accept new students into rolling West Annapolis and Mills Pearl specifically, and then Tyler will likely have the same phenomenon as will Hillsmere at some point in time. But yes, on paper, you're absolutely correct. The overlay of Monarch onto the existing footprint would create, in theory, absent the new school effect, the capacity for about 1,400 youngsters distributed across the Annapolis feeder district.
Which is the equivalent of 2 of our largest elementary schools in the county.
Yes, ma'am, essentially.
We also have 292 empty seats at Georgetown East. You were talking about the state looking at adjacent schools, and Georgetown East is just down the road from Tyler. So we've got 292 seats open right now at Georgetown East, but we have 147 kids over at Tyler. So do you think that's going to hurt us if we didn't slide some Tyler students out of Tyler, whether they went to Georgetown East or somewhere else? It's yet to be determined, but Tyler also is up for revitalization. So since that's an adjacent school as Eastport that has 88 available seats, could that hurt us when the state comes back to fund Tyler to say, you know, you don't even need all these seats?
Yes. Again, the state essentially looks at the school in question, and then its adjacent schools, which are essentially those schools that have a contiguous boundary. And so with respect to Tyler, the most logical 4 schools that are considered adjacent, again, would be Germantown, Eastport, Hillsmere, and Georgetown East. So they would look at those 5 in totality and sort of net the available seats out of Tyler and say we could move, theoretically, you could move X amount to Eastport, Y amount to Georgetown East, Z amount to Hillsmere. Therefore, you didn't need to build a school of the size you originally contemplated. You could build a school of 200, 250 students smaller at a much lower cost, et cetera. That's the state's construct. It's uniformly applied across all 24 jurisdictions in the state of Maryland, and it essentially has been the algorithm that they've followed largely since 1971.
And I know there have been folks that present that to us as a negative, that we shouldn't redistrict because then you're not going to get as big of a school as you might have gotten if we left things alone. But as a Board of Education, we also have a responsibility to our taxpayers. And if we have 765 empty seats, we have a portion of an elementary school being unused, particularly at Georgetown East. We have a responsibility, I feel, to make use of the buildings that we have as best we can before we continue to construct new ones. But that's me. Mrs. Hummer.
Sorry, Alex, one more. Very best case scenario, we get full funding. When would when could we look at a new Tyler Heights being open?
Well, as Dr. Lotto indicated earlier, we're trying to advocate for accelerating the construction of Tyler, such that we could break ground probably 2 summers from now, and the school would take 2 years from there. So you're talking like 2020, 2021 occupancy.
So we're looking at about 4 years. So right. Even though perhaps at that time there would need to be redistricting, but we're still looking at 4 years of the possibility that the students at Tyler are 150 kids over capacity or whatever the number is. But I'm in agreement with my other colleagues that we haven't said we're going to redistrict anything, but I think based on the numbers and our task that we have to use our resources, we need to study it. And that's why we have the committees, and they can come back, and they may come back and say, and the recommendation could be that we don't do anything. But I think we do have an obligation that we need to at least look at it and look at the scenarios. And the committees will consider all these things that we've brought up. They'll consider the new buildings coming online. They'll consider the growth, the projected growth for everything coming down the line. So those things will all be factored in when they come through. So I think we need to move forward and continue and get all the best information we can.
And I think we have the support, obviously, of our city council who came to speak. The Annapolis Education Commission, I understand, voted as well on Monday night to support redistricting for this particular school year, the study of it. And I know that County Executive Hsu also implored us to do this last spring, last school year, when he was speaking about the Tyler Heights, Hillsmere schools coming online. So I think we have the support of our funders as well. We have 4 cards: Lane Dixon, Jessica Packler, Antonia Berry, and Lisa Miller.
I'm going to jump right in while they're walking up, if that's all right. It's been a while, so thank you all very much. Thank you to the board for allowing me to speak tonight about the Annapolis Peninsula redistricting and the decision to include the Edgewater Elementary School. And my name's Lane Dixon. I have a son at Edgewater Elementary and a daughter who will be there in the next 2 years. As I think you all know, the notification we received, in October that we were going to be considered as part of this redistricting came as quite a shock to a lot of us, and raises a lot of concerns for what it means for our children, for our students, and for our community as a whole. This is obviously a very emotional issue. Redistricting is. I think that's been alluded to. Watching my son come home after his first day of kindergarten beaming because one of his T-ball, teammates from South River Youth Athletics was in his class makes it emotional. But I also know you guys have a tough job to do and that we need to try to put that aside. So I'm just going to try to focus on a couple of the objective things. I got the emotions out. My mom was a teacher and school counselor for 35 years, so I called her earlier today, got all the emotion out of the way. So you guys can thank her for that some other time, and then I'll try to stick to some of the objective factors. I think, first and foremost, our neighborhoods, by all measures, are committed and engaged members of the Edgewater community. That hasn't happened by accident. It didn't happen overnight, but what it does is afford us the ability to have the support structures and to have the social bonds that allow our children to thrive in these schools. And for us as parents, it allows us to have that support, to have the, quote, village that's needed for our children to thrive. And I think that can't be set aside. I think that's an important factor when you're looking at these things. I also understand, from your perspective and from the county perspective, solving the capacity constraints, the facility utilization issues is an important part of the redistricting consideration. But I think has been alluded to tonight, and as the Alderwoman mentioned before, we look at the numbers. I personally looked at some of the numbers, and it appears to me that over the long term, the South River feeder system can accommodate our neighborhoods, and alternatively, moving them now puts them into another system that has similar capacity issues and can really create a situation where we have instability for our families for a long time to come, and where we could just avoid this stress for our children and for our families altogether if we look at it as in the South River redistricting process. So, I'm very pleased that a lot of these factors are in the policies for the county when they look at the redistricting. I think it's important to talk to all of us, all the families in these neighborhoods, to understand how they all really work in our daily lives. There's so many things that if you look at a map or a number, you can't see based on what we do every day, what our families rely on, where we go to shop, and things like that. So we look forward to working with you, on an objective basis to make this work for all of us. Thank you again for your time, for all your work, for this long meeting that I'm sure you sit through every month.
Thank you to the board. My name is Jessica Packler, and I am a mom of 2 kids at Eastport Elementary, 2 more who will eventually go there, and I am also the Ward 8 representative to the Annapolis Education Commission. I am here to speak in support of continuing the redistricting process for this year as it is prescribed and moving forward with it. While the Edgewater parents are making a lot of good points, that is exactly what is discussed during the redistricting process. And for those who haven't been involved in this process for a long time or perhaps don't know, the Annapolis cluster of schools has not been redistricted in over 20 years. 20 years our kids have been dealing with overcrowded schools. They have been dealing with inequitable issues within the different schools. And for those who don't understand, the Annapolis cluster has 1/3 of the Title I students in the entire county in our schools. 1/3 of the Title I students are in our schools. And some of those students are at the most overcrowded schools. Tyler Heights is an incredibly high poverty population. Germantown has a high poverty population. Hillsmere deals with some of the some very some very poverty issues at their school as well. Those are the 3 schools that are most overcrowded within our cluster. But there are also other things that have been happening within our schools. Currently, there is busing that takes place all over the school system that takes kids away from their neighborhood schools for various reasons that may have made sense 25, 30 years ago when the last redistricting was done, but don't make sense today. We need to examine all of these issues, and we don't need to wait another year. We can't wait. Our kids can't afford to wait. Our students can't afford to wait. All of the parents who don't have the ability to be here tonight because they're working or they don't have the transportation that are in our cluster, they and their families cannot wait another year. They certainly can't wait until after Tyler Heights is finished. We need it done. We need it talked about. This going forward with it does not mean that any changes will be made. And I understand how horrific this process is. I was a bystander when there was an attempted partial redistricting 3 years ago that didn't go forward, and I am on the redistricting committee this year. I know that by sitting here, I am putting myself and my family in line for 3 months of a lot of not fun. My 4 kids and my husband are going to be negatively impacted by the next 3 months because of the redistricting. But it is so important that I urge you to keep continuing forward, because we all need it. Our schools need it. Our students need it. And all of the issues that the Edgewater parents have are going to be brought up, and they're going to be discussed. No one is saying that Edgewater students won't stay in Edgewater schools, but we need to move forward. And if it means that you need to take Edgewater out to do so, then maybe that's what you need to do. But really, Edgewater parents, it needs to be discussed for all of our students. So please move forward this. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your support.
My name is Antonia Berry. I had 2 children that had gone to Germantown Elementary School. One's a junior in college now. One's a freshman at South River High School. When my children were in school, the Germantown Elementary School was overcrowded. I think we had 8 to 11 portables, and we constantly fought for a new school, and we finally got one. One of the battles, though, that you're always going to constantly run into is the political process here. Parents, people who have purchased homes in more expensive areas because of the school districts are not going to want to be redistricted. Period. And you're going to continuously run into that. And the only solution for that is that parity of excellence in these schools needs to occur. And then your political process will be a lot easier, because people will feel better about redistricting when there is excellence in all the schools. And right now, that's not the case. And you're constantly going to run into that issue. Title I schools. They need funds so that they can have smaller classrooms. That's the only way these kids are going to be able to learn better and do better. I participated at the elementary school level. I volunteered quite a bit. That was what I saw firsthand. The smaller the classes were, and they were small when my son was there. And you could see how well the kids were performing in that kind of environment. They need the funds. They need the good teachers. They need experienced teachers. And they need smaller classrooms. Make that happen, you won't have problems redistricting down the road. You need parity and excellence in these schools, and that'll help your job be a lot easier.
Hi, my name is Lisa Miller, and listening to the ladies to my right speak, I don't really understand why Edgewater was brought into this. It doesn't sound like you need more kids at Mills Parole or the other schools you're referring to. I have a 7th grader at Central Middle and a junior at South River. My junior attended Annapolis Middle for the IB program. She had a difficult transition into high school because it was in a different district. So because of that, I declined a seat at the IB program for my Annapolis Middle at Annapolis Middle for my 7th grader. I wanted her to have an easier transition into high school. In 2003, I think it was, our area was redistricted
for Edgewater. 2 years ago, redistricting for Edgewater was on the agenda. Now again, our area is on the agenda for redistricting, and I wonder in a couple of years after Monarch Academy and Crofton High and new construction in Annapolis is complete, are we going to be looked at again? It's stressful. It's stressful for the parents. It's stressful for the kids. I want them to have, stability and not feel like a ping pong ball. I just believe right now that there are too many unknowns to go through with the redistricting, and of course the committee will, either arrive at that conclusion or other options. Thank you.
Mr. Green.
I just have a follow-up question. You can address it, Dr. Olato, or maybe you know the answer to this. Are you saying that in 2003, the families that are now part of the Edgewater School District but are geographically on the Annapolis Peninsula, that's when that determination was made?
Yes.
Okay.
2004.
And where were they before that? Okay.
Only the elementary school was.
Thank you.
The history of it was that the neighborhood was temporarily aligned with Mills Parole so that some construction could occur on the Mayo Peninsula, and then the bridge was built, that sort of thing. So we had the South River Bridge had just been recently completed. So in 2003, our neighborhood's petition to be placed back in Edgewater. And the school board supported that because that was the promise made in
87? Or 92. And it was just the elementary school. So the elementary school students were in Annapolis just for that period of time, and then they were put into the original districting with Central and South River for their last part of their school. So.
Thank you.
Put back into it.
All right, I don't have any additional cards. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to us at this time?
Hi, Janet Norman. I was a member of the redistricting process representing Annapolis Middle 2 years ago, and yes, it is a very painful process, but it got a lot of needed information out. I would urge you not to look at number of seats in the schools. I know the state has state-rated capacity, but like Ms. Berry said, don't look at seats as if they're cogs. Those are not seats, they're children. They're children in those schools. Georgetown East, who you are proclaiming has so much room in their school system, had the lowest park scores, I think, in your entire county. You can double check my numbers on that, but I thought they were at like 7 or 9% proficiency on level reading. They had some of the lowest park scores. Those kids really need the small classrooms, the mentorship, the one-on-one to get them on the right track, like all the gentlemen spoke to you about earlier. They need to be brought up on their reading levels. So don't look at it as, there's seats we can move around and in an equitable fashion, as if one seat in Severna Park was the same as one seat in Annapolis. We have a lot of issues and a lot of support needed for our students. And Monarch, I'm hoping that you are doing everything possible to bring Monarch online and help with the small issues that are coming up and push it through so that our families can know that that's an option. That will also not only be drawing from your existing population of public school students, but there's a very real possibility that it's going to bring other people into the Annapolis schools that are currently in private schools or forced to other options. So Monarch coming online is shooting for 530 students to make or break, up to 583 for the first year. So it will not be 1,400 seats open next year. So let's not repeat that number as if it's accurate. I hope we can understand the needs of Annapolis schools and the need to redistrict and the need to balance out a brand new school at Rolling Knolls with seats available and small classes and gorgeous facilities with the overcrowded conditions and, fungus growing in trailers at Tyler Heights. So we really need some help for our students, and we hope you can help guide that and guide the Monarch Contract School to be successful for our students. Thank you.
Hi, thanks very much for having me. I'm Gail Inman. Two of my children have graduated from South River High School. One's in Central Middle, and one is still in South River High School. I'd like to voice comments in support of Ms. Sasso's comments about the fact that we don't want to have to be redistricted again and again. We know the numbers. You know the numbers. You've looked at all the growth projections for both the Annapolis feeder school and for the South River feeder system. And we just honestly believe that this numbers game should not really include a discussion of the Edgewater neighborhoods north of the South River, because we are at heart Edgewater neighborhoods. We couldn't have said it better than my colleague Paul said. Our kids are deeply rooted in the sports and communities associations south of the river. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next review item is 5.02, the monthly financial status report and FY 2017 revenue and expenditure projections.
While everybody's walking out, I want to thank you all for coming. You probably know it's after 10 o'clock at night, and I appreciate you coming and voicing your opinion.
All right. This is a review item. Are there any board questions or comments? No. Any public comment? All right. I just have a few announcements, and then we can conclude. The next Board of Education meeting is Wednesday, December 7th at 10 a.m. The next Board Policy Committee meeting is Wednesday, November 30th at 1 p.m. And the next Board Budget Committee meeting is Wednesday, December 21st, an hour after the public meeting ends. That concludes the November 16th Board of Education meeting, and I'd like to just wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving.